I call this meeting of the Conroe Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum of members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. The time is 6:02. Our first two items of business is our invocation, which will be led by Datron Williams, and our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Teresa Wagaman.
Please join me in a word of prayer if you choose. Heavenly Father, once again, we come in a prayer of thanksgiving and petition. We thank you for allowing us to be of service to our community. Father, we thank you for your continuous protection and blessings to our family and to this great school district. Now, Father, we petition you for the strength, endurance, and patience needed for our teachers and administrators. Let them run this race without being weary or distracted. Let them remain steadfast in their loving and teaching of your children. Father, grant our board and administration the wisdom and humility in our service, needed in our service. May we decrease in ourselves and any preconceived agendas that we may increase and receive your glory. And Father, we ask a special blessing to the people of Palestine and Israel. Grant them a peace that only you can give. In closing, let us forgive and be forgiven for all sins confessed and unconfessed, so as not to hinder these prayers. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag? Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 2A, which is our special recognition for Energy Star 100 certification for Stockton Junior High. Dr. Snow.
Yes, sir. We'll invite Mr. Chris McCord, our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, to come forward.
So, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll, I'm here tonight as part of the awarding of Stockton Junior High an Energy Star 100 certification. Special thanks go out to Dr. Carlton Todd, principal of Stockton Junior High, for coming out tonight to accept the award. Representing Entergy, and to tell us more about the award is Mr. Mark Delavan, Program Manager of the Energy Efficiency Programs at Entergy, Texas. Without further ado, here's Mr. Mark Delavan.
Well, thank you, Conroe ISD School Board, for allowing Entergy Texas to be here today. I would also like to thank Marshall Schroeder, Brian Broussard, and Brian Grimm with Conroe ISD for placing us on the agenda. And I would also like to introduce Ellie Villamontes, Mark Fowler, and Kelly O'Donnell with Entergy, who are also present at this meeting. So I'm excited to share about you with the partnership that we've had with Conroe ISD and Entergy Texas. So Conroe ISD has been a longtime participant of our Commercial Solutions program, which is our energy efficiency program for non-residential customers. You've made a lasting impact on this district and the community by participating in this area and being a leader in energy efficiency. Today I'm going to focus on the accomplishments that happened at Stockton Junior High. So many years ago, Conroe ISD set a goal to get one of their schools under the Energy Star certification. Now, Energy Star is a federal government program that is there to promote energy efficiency, and it hosts a building certification program which allows buildings to measure themselves against their peers. A score of 75 means that that school is 75% more efficient than any of their neighbor or similar buildings across the country. Now, Stockton Junior High was selected to be the first school to undergo this certification, and Entergy Texas was excited to provide some assistance. We partnered with Conroe ISD and Marshall and EZ's team with the construction team to actually provide incentive dollars for installing energy efficient equipment, including lighting, HVAC, and kitchen equipment. And this school also had a 1 megawatt solar facility built next to it that will help power the school when the sun is shining. So to apply for this Energy Star certification, Conroe ISD needed to put in an application that was provided by a professional engineer. Entergy provided this professional engineer at no cost and helped Conroe ISD submit this application. In April of 2023, Conroe was rewarded Energy Star certification score with a score of 100 out of 100. Now, this is a very impressive number. This means that Stockton Junior High is in the top percentile of energy efficient buildings in the country. And I pulled the data for Energy Star and looked at the database, and I kind of did some digging to see how Conroe compares to other schools across the country. Here's what I found. In Entergy, Texas service territory, Stockton Junior High is the highest certified building in our service territory. In Texas, since 1999, only 76 other schools in the state of Texas have earned a score of 100. In the United States in 2023, only 4 other schools in the country have received a score of 100. And in Texas of this year, it is the highest rated energy efficiency building in the state of Texas.
All right.
So first, I would like to praise Conroe ISD and everyone who worked on this project for the continuous innovation and leadership that you guys have shown when it comes to being energy efficient and managing and stewarding your resources well. So Entergy Texas, we are very proud to serve Conroe ISD, and we look forward to more partnerships and more projects in the future. So I would like to present this award to the Dr.
Todd?
Dr. Todd. Excuse me.
So, Dr. Todd, when I was asked to speak about this, I said sure, because I know how efficient you run things, and it just seemed to go along with the theme that you have there at Stockton Junior High. So on behalf of the board and everyone here, I just want to say congratulations, good work, keep it up. We appreciate you and everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you for those words. I guess Dr. Todd sounds more like my dad. Who left these lights on? Just kidding. No, that's exciting. Thank you, and thank you for everybody involved. Moving on to item 2B, niche best of awards. Dr. Knoll.
Yeah, so, there are so many ways that as a school district we're measured. Our performance is measured by different entities at all different times. Sometimes it's about Energy Star ratings. Just 2 weeks ago we had ERG here that really looked at our academic and financial performance, ranking us, perennially in the top 10 in the state and as high as number 2 in the state. Texas Smart Schools also combines as finances and academic performance, and we're one of only 2 school districts to have a perfect score in that system as well out of the 1,200 school districts. But there's also another entity that looks at us and all school districts, and that's niche.com, and they come out annually with their analysis of school districts, but they also give some superlative awards. And here tonight to tell us about our performance and that metric is Ms. Sarah Blakelock.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. I am so excited to be here with you tonight to talk again about some wonderful recognition that our district has received. I want to take a trip down memory lane really fast. Back in 2022 was we received the Best School District and the Most Diverse School District Award from Niche. This was the first year that we realized that we were receiving these awards. So in our by our account, it's our first year to get them. And so this was very special to us because we always think we're the best here in Conroe ISD. And then I had the pleasure of coming to you last year. And again, Conroe ISD was awarded the Best School District, Most Diverse School District, but then 2 additional superlatives, the Best Place to Teach and the Best School District for Athletes. We're very proud of that. It signals back to your leadership, to the great people we have here, our great community, all of these wonderful things. Well, tonight I am happy again to be here to tell you that we received all of the same accolades for 2024. So we are again niche.com's best school district, most diverse school district, best place to teach, and best district for athletes in Montgomery County for 3 years for best school district running. So we are very proud of that. And this award is extra special because it is something that, you know, the community members give reviews on, families give reviews. It's based off of our accountability scores. And so we just work hard every day. We're kind to people. We try and create an environment where people want to come and learn, and we are recognized by Niche. So congratulations.
Congratulations. Is there a,
And we have a certificate here.
yes. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like for our entire board to get up here and get a picture. We don't always get to be in one, so let's all get up here and we'll be together for this award. You take your tags off if you want.
I'd just like to say a big congratulations and thank you to all of our staff that's in the room as well. Like, this is a reflection of a lot of people's hard work. Almost 10,000 employees in Conroe ISD go into making things like this happen. So we certainly appreciate you all very much.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, the district as a whole, I wish we could all be in that picture because it takes everybody in the room and those that are behind the scenes. And so we just really appreciate it. And teaching kids is a calling, and I know that you guys love doing it and showing up for work every day and doing what you do. It means a lot. So the certificate is great, but even if we weren't receiving a certificate or being recognized, I know that all of you would still show up and do your jobs and love kids and teach kids, and that's awesome. So thank you for who you all are and what you do. Appreciate you. All right, moving on to our citizen participation, and I do see that we have some people signed up today. So during this portion of the meeting, patrons who have signed up in advance may address the board in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, and Board Policy BED. For comments regarding an issue on tonight's posted agenda, the board will defer its discussion of this issue until the item is reached on the agenda. For comments related to an issue that is not on the board's posted agenda, the board cannot deliberate or make a decision related to that issue. We ask that the speakers address their comments to the board and not to the audience. If any speaker's comments are regarding a complaint, the board directs you to its policy regarding complaints, which can be found on the district's website. Please be aware that if your purpose in addressing the board is to seek a remedy for your complaint, the board cannot discuss or respond to your concern until you have met the requirements of the appropriate district policy. Now, each speaker will be given 2.5 minutes to present their comments to the board. So we've extended that a little bit. I have, as I've said in the past, I think this is a great part of our meeting that we hear from our citizens. And I've heard from a couple of you saying that 2 minutes just isn't quite enough. And so I think 5 minutes might be too much, which we were several years ago. So I made a decision to just kind of lengthen that to give people a little bit more time. So we've increased that to 2.5 minutes. Screens around the room will display the speaker's time. And when the countdown timer reaches 0, the next speaker will be called, which means I have to be a little bit more diligent on the 2.5 minutes. So, Ms. Godfrey, will you please call our first person?
Michelle Knuckles. I'm sorry, I think my mic was on. Michelle Knuckles.
I will be reading on behalf of Citizens Defending Freedom. Lillian Duncan by Donna Geffart. This book can be found in 7 CISD libraries, including Ions, Knox, McCullough, Moorhead, and Stockton Junior High. Once, when we were little and did this at a sleepover, Dare's mom, Ophelia, looked at me strangely for a few moments, then came into the room and joined us. And when I asked her to put makeup on my face like she was doing for Dare, she did, but said, Don't tell your parents I did this, okay? Even back then, I knew it was okay to tell Mom, but not Dad. But I didn't mention it to either of them, just in case. We're quiet for a while. Dad? Yes. Can you tell me what Dr. Clem said that day when we first we first went to her? I felt like you changed after that. Everything changed after that. Dad inhales deeply. Maybe Mom's having an influence on him after all. The doctor said something that completely upended the way I think about everything. She showed me a statistic. 43% of transgender kids try to kill themselves. Dad sniffs again hard. Then she said, "Would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter?" I'm finding a lot in a lot of these books, these middle grade books that I'm reading, and I read them from cover to cover, that hiding secrets from parents, deleting history, internet history, and emotional blackmail are common themes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Alexander Harris.
Dear Board, I'm here to talk about the indoctrination of our children with library books containing the LGBTQ ideology. This particular book, which was just read to you, is indoctrination with disinformation. There are around 7 copies, and here's a little piece from this book. It talks about Tim, who wants to be a girl, who decided to be a girl. And the mother supports this. And she says, when Tim was 5 years old, he knew that she was a girl. And he wanted to take her nail clippers and remove his penis because it didn't belong there at 5 years old. But the father is resistant. And they go to the psychiatrist, the so-called psychiatrist, who shows 43% of all children who want to transition commit suicide. And ask the question again, would you rather have a dead son or a live daughter? But reality of this is Dr. Miriam Grossman, she said, there is no solid evidence that gender-affirming care leads to positive outcomes and decreased suicide. Rather, there is conclusive evidence that it causes serious harm and long-term suffering. This is reality. LGBTQ is part of the atheistic ideology. It follows NSCS, which I have repeatedly tried to educate everyone. You look at all of this, it follows NSCS. Conroe ISD is mandated to teach STEM, not to indoctrinate our children with atheistic ideology. You already teach something, hey, the whole world came from nothing. And you repeatedly teach it. I mean, you have, of course, SBOE backing you up. They look at me, they can't disprove it. No one can disprove it. Or no one can prove it that it came from nothing. That's magic. And we call it science. Our nation was built on biblical principles. And we are expecting a robust policy tonight which will eliminate books which are spreading disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Robert Holden. Robert Holden.
My name was on the board. First, I'd like to thank Skeeter. There have been several groups I've attended this last few weeks where he let us know that y'all have eliminated over 100 books from the school. And I wasn't aware of that, but congratulations. I didn't know you'd been that successful. This is to address those who support the board members to support the communist agenda to destroy our country by destroying our culture. I thought that your support of pornography, since it made no academic sense in the schools, was in support of the perhaps pedophiles and child molesters, which may occupy government ed. Yes, Conroe teachers have been found guilty and sent to prison for diddling their students. The Texas Scorecard recently published a list of school personnel who have been legally charged just in Texas, just this year, with diddling their students. And that was more than 60 pages. But a recent seminar had caused me to rethink this. It could also be that someone in a senior position in the school is making money by grooming these kids and selling them to pimps or traffickers. The pimp can now just say to the kid, age doesn't matter, and it's all normal. After all, you learned it in school. It's obvious these do not serve an academic, conventional education. And we also know you are not chartered to serve a psychiatric or mental development function. It may be we should look to follow the money. And that might be something worth researching on your all part. Remember, in the United States, last year, more than 60,000 American children disappeared. That's in addition to 80 to 100,000 foreign national children that cannot be identified, found, or located. How much are you contributing to all of this? And are you making our country stronger? Look at Israel. It's coming here. They promised us. First Ukraine, then Israel, then Americans. Are your kids that you're teaching prepared to protect your life or even their own? Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Lieber. Good evening. Thank you for your service as board members for CISD. I'm Deborah Lieber, and I have lived in the Woodlands for almost 40 years. All three of my children attended CISD schools, and my grandchildren will attend soon. I'm very concerned about the movement to replace the recently adopted CISD school book review policy with the Katy ISD policy that allows 2 board members to bring up books for a vote by the board, completely circumventing the book review process. Such a policy would just make it easier for books to be banned. All parents should have the right to decide what materials their own children can read and to opt out of specific books and other educational materials. While respecting the exercise of parental rights, I remind this board that no parent has the right to impose their personal parenting decisions on all students. Reading is supposed to expand our ideas and thoughts, not coincide with our confirmation bias. Books should inspire students to debate and exchange ideas. Banning books implies that some ideas and experiences are valuable or worthy of discussion and others are not. It reinforces one way of thinking and limits others. All our students should feel welcome and accepted, and having access to books that they can relate to is critical. The existing CISD book policy is comprehensive, prohibits harmful and obscene materials as defined by the Texas Penal Code, and does not need to be replaced. The board needs to focus on the running of the school district, not the constant review of books. Our district is fortunate to have highly qualified teachers and librarians. We must trust them to make the right decisions. It is time to move forward, not continually readdress issues that have already been decided. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole May.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Thank you again for recognizing October as Dyslexia Awareness Month and for honoring the hardworking dyslexia teams in our district. I'd like to add diagnosticians to the list of employees to recognize as well. We know they are stretched thin, and the last few years have been a big adjustment for them as they are now required to evaluate our dyslexic students. It is my hope that next year the district can use its broad reach on its social media platforms to help dispel myths and stigmas to the general population, as this is truly the purpose of Dyslexia Awareness Month. There is one myth or untruth that was spoken at the Literacy Board workshop in February that has bothered me and stuck with me. During the workshop, one of the tenured trustees stated, and I quote, "We are not an institution designed to catch every kid." This is 100% false. Federal child fine law under IDEA requires public schools to look for, find, and evaluate kids who need special education. It is concerning and disturbing to me that a longtime trustee that has been on the board for quite some time is unaware of this very basic IDEA requirement by our public education system. It is an untruth like this that makes Dyslexia Awareness Month so important. All means all, and that includes our most vulnerable students. A big thank you to Trustee Odenweller for making the trip to Austin with us for the dyslexia bill, HB 3928. Your voice with legislators was incredibly helpful, and the dyslexia community is very grateful. And I also want to thank Representative Steve Toth for authoring HB 3928. Without Representative Toth's focused determination and loyalty to struggling readers, our bill would not have passed. Texas dyslexia families are grateful to Representative Toth, and we look forward to working with him in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry Vane.
Dr. Knoll, President Hubert, and members of the board, I'm really here to say thank you, because just over 2 months ago, Chain Reagan and I stood here and proposed to you the proposition brought to you by the Bond Committee for 2023, a recommendation that was adopted by y'all and now is going to the voters beginning on Monday. So thank you for all that you have done, the conversations that you have had, the ways that you have promoted it. Dr. Knoll, thanks to you and your administrative staff, I think y'all have done meetings morning, noon, and multiple times at night. I've been part of a few of those, but it's gotten word into our community, and they have been able to see the benefits of this for students, for parents, for our community at large. And Sarah Blakelock, to you and your communications team, the information that has been put out has allowed people to have conversations with me and say, we are thankful that Conroe ISD has been open and has been transparent about this whole process, even from the very beginning. So as much as I appreciate all of that, I've come to another realization I just want to bring before you today that I have found refreshing, and that is that people have been able to concentrate on what is good about Conroe ISD. That's been refreshing to me because I've been rereading one of my favorite books by Rich Viotis. The book's entitled Good and Beautiful and Kind. And he wrote that book in response to our culture, which tends to focus on all that is evil and ugly and mean. We know that. We've seen that, and we hear that. And thankfully, all of that seems to have found its place in a false narrative that continues to try and yet fails to override what is good and beautiful and kind. That's happened a lot in these past 2 months. And it's my hope, and since I'm a praying person, it's also my prayer that once this bond is approved and once we get to live into it, that we will all work together to continue to promote what is good and beautiful and kind about Conroe ISD. I think our children deserve that. I think the parents deserve that. And I think our community will embrace that for many years to come. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Catherine Parker.
Hello. I will be reading on behalf of Citizens Defending Freedom, a book called Too Bright to See by Karl Lukoff. You can find this book at several Conroe ISD libraries, including Mitchell Intermediate, Veterans Memorial Intermediate, Wilkerson Intermediate. It is a book that is written from the perspective of a girl named Bug. Racing along the rough and winding roads that lead to my house, I'm not nervous at all. I'm going to tell Mom that I'm a boy. She'll hug me and kiss my shorn head and tell me that she loves me no matter what. Will buy me new clothes. I'll pick a new name. Every part of myself that never fit before will snap into place. Bug goes on to speak to a friend. I grin. She has no idea. I'm a boy, I tell her. Best to just barrel ahead, get it all out at once. The word for that is transgender. You can still call me Bug for now, but I'm going to choose a new name. And I might start going by that name before the first day of school. Or I might wait till later. I'm not sure yet. No matter what her response is, just saying it makes me feel powerful, awake. And I go on to ask her, are you okay with it? Do you still want to be my friend? Do you still need time to get used to it? She rolls her eyes. I mean, it's not really something I need to be okay with, right? It's just like who you are. And honestly, this is probably going to make it so much easier to make friends. You make such a cute boy. We're going to have no trouble fitting in. Notice that all of her problems are solved by identifying as trans in this book. Grooming. This passage says the quiet part out loud. If you are transgender or you have a trans friend, you will fit in better. Socially, this will help your popularity. Parents of tomboys are reporting that their daughters are being pressured to identify as trans for this reason. I speak as a very girly girl who spent several years working as a diesel mechanic in a gold mine. You don't have to identify as a man to do many things as a woman. And for people to suggest that you may be confused on who you are to children is evil. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aggie Gambino.
Hello.
Howdy.
Good. All right. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Knoll. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. So today, during Dyslexia Awareness Month, I decided I finally wanted to address you. Our daughter was denied her fundamental right to learn how to read. Not only did this school district violate the law, but they also caused significant mental and emotional damage to our daughter. As you may recall, Mr. Hubert, during one of our conversations, you expressed skepticism, saying, good luck with that due process. Conroe never loses. Much to your surprise and to the benefit of our family, we emerged triumphant in our case. This victory serves as a testament to the power of unity and the unwavering commitment to defending our children's rights. During our recent legal proceedings, it was determined by a hearing officer that the district failed to provide free, appropriate public education to our daughter, and this underscores the gravity of the situation. We must recognize the harm done to our children and take swift action to rectify these injustices. As a call to action, I implore the district to take immediate steps. We need an investigation at Broadway Elementary School where these violations took place and understand how this situation was allowed to persist. Furthermore, we need transparency regarding how the district is being held accountable by this board in response to this legal situation. It is crucial to ensure that other families don't suffer the same fate as ours, and that no child is ever denied a free, appropriate public education. I want to also express our heartfelt thanks to State Representative Steve Toth for being the driving force behind the Beckley-Wilson Dyslexia Act being passed into law. His dedication to supporting children with dyslexia is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to seeing the positive impact of this legislation in our community. I also must thank Trustee Misty Odenweller for being our district's champion for this bill. She fought for our kids every step of the way until the bill was passed, and her tireless efforts are truly commendable, and I thank you. In conclusion, let us use this moment to drive positive change. We have a duty to provide the best possible education to all of our students. Together, we can ensure that my daughter's story is not repeated and is a turning point, and that our district becomes a beacon of inclusivity and excellence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie Bullfinch.
Hello, I will be reading on behalf of the Citizens Defending Freedom, the book The Other Boy. This book can be found at the following Conroe ISD libraries: Mitchell Intermediate, Irons Junior High School, and Stockton Junior High School. This book is about a young girl who socially transitions to a boy while on puberty blockers and later begins taking testosterone. The passage I will be reading is when Shane is contemplating self-harm after being outed at school. I turned the shower on as hot as I could stand it and stood beneath the spray, eyes closed, eye washed under my arms, then tilted my head back and let the soap rinse off. I couldn't bear to clean anywhere else. My body felt like a traitor. I hated everything about it. I suddenly understood why some of the kids in the support group hurt themselves. They were trying to carve off the pieces that didn't belong. Mom's razor suddenly looked really tempting. I swallowed hard and turned away from it. This type of book is promoting self-harm or making choices that will totally be irreversible. If they want to do that type of thing when they're 18 and consider that type of stuff, that's one thing. But these are children. These are into children's library at our schools.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Morrison. Elizabeth Morrison.
Nope.
Cindy Phillips.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I will be reading also on behalf of Citizens Defending Freedom from the book called The Pants Project by Kat Clark. This book can be found at the following Conroe ISD libraries, including Irons Junior High School and McCullough Junior High School. It's not really something you can just blurt out at the dinner table. Please, can you pass the ketchup? Oh, and by the way, I think I'm a boy, not a girl. At first, I was just antsy when people used the word girl or daughter or sister, or when they insisted on calling me Olivia, even though I told them to call me Liv. Liv wasn't perfect, but it was a whole lot better than Olivia. Then I began to feel angry and upset for no reason, except it wasn't for no reason. Most people would get angry if people insisted on calling them something they're not. And the author continues to explain that Olivia's anger issues are because she is a boy inside. The implication for the reader is if you have anger issues, maybe it's because you're a boy inside. Sorry. Okay. I hadn't told Maisie my secret, or the secret, as I started to think of it. There were lots of times when I nearly blurted out the words, especially recently. Over the summer, I'd spent a lot of time Googling on the laptop and then making sure to delete my search history, even though I was 99% sure the moms wouldn't know how to check it anyway. I already knew the word transgender. The author again goes on to explain that using keywords, you can find stories and blogs on websites like YouTube. Again, these books, as you're hearing, just carry out, they push an agenda that honestly isn't something that everyone agrees with. And I will agree that parents ultimately should decide on what their children should read. But it's been a few years since I had little ones. I have grandchildren now, but I can't imagine the lives that I'm watching my grown children as parents. It's exponentially busier. And to digest each one of these books before you give it to your child, there is no way, I will argue that there's no way that you can screen every single book before your child sees it. And I've lived it 25 years ago. I can't imagine now with everything else. It's, like I said, it's exponentially busier. So just ask that you would just help think through that, please. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Melissa Semler. Melissa Semler.
Hello. I'm here today because I'm concerned about CISD's transparency regarding development of cell phone policies. In the September 19th school board meeting, Dr. Spear, a parent volunteer and local physician, was questioned by the board for about an hour. and the level of hostility shown to her by our school board president was highly concerning. It is my hope that the hostile questioning of Dr. Spear is not reflective of CISD's attitude towards parent volunteers. I know TASB encourages Texas school districts to appear aligned on issues, but at some point, silencing all voices of dissension prohibits catalysts necessary for positive change. Several cell phone surveys were sent out to CISD parents after the September 19th board meeting. None of the surveys have been user validated, and some had contradictory and confusing questions. As it stands, anyone could be filling out these surveys, including our CISD students. Issues with research methods like this will cause surveys to yield misleading and unreliable data, which in turn can create difficulties making informed decisions. I also noted that every single CISD principal is aligned in saying cell phones are not a problem in their schools. So I have to ask, why did my child see pornography at a CISD middle school, in class? Why were my friend's children airdropped a video featuring child pornography at lunch in middle school last year? All of these pornographic videos featured CISD students, and they are not the same video. Isn't it a crime to distribute child pornography? Doesn't pornography exposure at a public school constitute a Title IX violation? To me, this indicates a problem with cell phones in schools. If you're going to demand transparency from parent volunteers, please lead by example and demonstrate transparency within CISD administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Eckhart.
Good evening, Jennifer Eckhart from Citizens Defending Freedom. As you review your district's library policy, we appreciate your consideration and encourage you to consider removing and preventing books with harmful material. As you've heard from some of the books that have been read aloud, these particular books have disturbing content. These books target children who are uncomfortable with themselves, their body, or certain body parts, which means just about everybody going through puberty. I mean, who here was happy when they were with their body when they were going through puberty, or as a teenager? Who's happy with every body part now? These books introduce ideas such as self-harm. When you're not happy with a part of yourself, maybe you can cut it with a razor. Like you heard, Mom's razor suddenly looked very tempting. Mental health issues are on the rise, especially after COVID. Statistics show that an increase in mental health screenings have increased almost 500%. And for youth, 79% of that show an increase in moderate to severe anxiety and depression. Suicidal ideation and thoughts are on the rise, and many youths are experiencing suicidal ideation daily. With depression and anxiety plaguing our community at alarming rates, why should we expose our children to information that risks exacerbating mental health issues? Additionally, we are introducing information that causes children to become alienated from themselves and their families. These books present the following dilemmas. Belief that the outside support is all good and the bio family is all bad. It magnifies parental flaws. It uses illness or mental struggles to block access to the child. It openly blames children's parents. It employs guilt, manipulation, and fear to force the child to choose others over their parent. And it applies parental danger. Studies show that these alienating behaviors pushed by these books create higher incidences of depression and personality disorder pathologies. If you believe these books are helpful for children because they can identify with a storyline, then you've been misinformed and misguided. When a child needs help with mental health and/or identity, then they need to be encouraged to turn to their family and to seek out appropriate mental health services with a well-trained, licensed professional, not a book a child is trying to guide themselves with on an uncharted path. So what happens when a child becomes alienated? Here are just a few examples. Not appear to have a close relationship with the parent, uses drugs or alcohol, develop mental health problems, eating disorders, or start self-harming. Suicidal ideation due to feelings of wanting to get away or escape. None of that is healthy for our children. And we have a book list that we can provide to you that has these common things if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Prosky.
Good afternoon. Respect, a value for consideration. I am a member of the SHAC. At the September 19th board meeting, 4 members of the board disregarded the bylaws of the state-mandated SHAC. The board opted not to follow the bylaws. The SHAC chair and district parent, Dr. Spear, presented the Council's 2023-2024 recommendations as it is done annually. She was treated disrespectfully. All the parents that committed to volunteer for the SHAC were insulted when another board member described the SHAC culture as being exclusive to the district. These three facts have in common the board's lack of respect for the bylaws, the parents, and the SHAC as a council. As a proud American citizen that came from a country where the most common saying regarding the law is every law has a loophole, it's very disappointed to see what's going on here in our community at our own school district. We know that we lead with our example. What kind of example is this board reflecting in our community? What kind of political leaders we want for our community? I hope that we will be able to come together and fix what was wrongly done in order to follow the bylaws that exist to be followed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
April Kersey. April Kersey.
Hello, trustees, Dr. Knoll. As you know, CISD's 23-24 improvement plan states, CISD is committed to strengthening the partnership between schools and home. Parents are encouraged to be an active participant in their education of their child. Last month, you were given a recommendation from SHAC, a council consisting mostly of parents who volunteer countless hours for the betterment of our children and district. I was shocked and disappointed to see the disrespect from some board members towards our parent community. There was very little partnering with parents going on. You treated SHAC parent chair, Dr. Spear, with disdain and were dismissive of SHAC efforts. There is no place in these meetings for disrespect. There is also no place for misinformation. By your own admission, some of you never attended or watched SHAC meetings, and yet you made disparaging remarks about SHAC parent, volunteers, and the culture on the council, all based on hearsay. This behavior is unacceptable. It's okay to disagree, but you must do so professionally. As district leadership, you must do better. And please come to our meetings so you can draw your own conclusions. We're doing some exciting things that I'm sure you'd like to hear that benefit our students. Later tonight, you will discuss the library materials policy. I've spent many hours volunteering in CISD libraries working with great librarians. My children enjoy reading books from CISD, and nearly every time this has been a wonderful experience. However, there have been times my kids have brought home books that contain sexually explicit content and introduce sexual topics at way too early of an age, making them age inappropriate. The vast majority of books in our CISD libraries are excellent. However, some age inappropriate books are somehow making their way on CISD shelves, and this needs to be addressed. Research shows exposing children to sexually explicit material negatively impacts a child's healthy development and is linked to risky sexual behaviors. This is not the outcome any of us want for our children. This topic is not political. This is not book banning. This is about doing what is best for our children's development based on data and making age-appropriate and informed decisions. Based on personal experience, our existing policy does not have sufficient safeguards in place. Please implement a stronger policy that prevents children from accessing sexually explicit material at school. As was said earlier tonight, there's lots of good things going on in CISD, and I am very proud to be in this community, but we have work to do, so let's work together and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Samoris.
Evening, Board.
Howdy.
Dr. Knoll, President Hubert. I always enjoy the public comments here. I'm going to bring something a little lighter, which is cell phone committee. I am a parent on the cell phone committee. And I'd first like to give a huge thanks to Dr. Medford, Dr. Taylor, and the staff who have been putting the committee meetings on. It's been very transparent, open, and they've been very responsive to me and answered all the questions that I've had as a member of that committee. I did have similar concerns to the person before who said that when principals had reported they had no issues with cell phones, that I was skeptical of that. And for tonight, I would like to voice support for the K through 6 guidelines that you will hear. I do believe that those are arguably the easiest guidelines since younger children in elementary schools typically don't have phones till they get in junior high and high school. So hopefully that is an easier one to adopt. However, moving forward, I do have some concerns about the guidelines in general, but not because of the guidelines themselves, but because the implementation of them. So as part of the committee, we were invited to visit some schools, and I went and visited a high school, a very large one, and this school already has a very comprehensive cell phone policy. So I had expected to go in and see absolutely no phones, and I went in and I saw quite a few phones out during lectures while teachers were teaching. And of course, I go home and I tell my wife, who was a teacher, they're not enforcing their policy. She's like, well, hold on, you know, and she set me straight on quite a few things on how teaching works. The issue is complex and deep. Implementing a guideline is maybe the first step for certain things, but it's definitely not the major item. There's going to have to be quite a bit of coordination with not just teachers who, again, it's not their job to police phones. It's going to have to be coordination with administration, parents especially, and students, that there are going to be expectations around cell phones because the issue is there, right? You can link it to social media use and mental health issue. You can link it to classroom disruption, right? And then it can be related to all those things. So for tonight, please vote yes for the K through 6 guidelines, and perhaps administration and the board think about the different ways that this can be implemented in junior high and high school, and hopefully we'll come up with a great solution to deal with the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly Moore.
Hello, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Mine will be a little bit different than I think everything else we've heard tonight. I just want to share, so I have a second grader and a fifth grader in the district, and my son that's in fifth grade had this second grade teacher years ago that to this day, I think he still kind of puts her on a pedestal, very much admires her, loves her, wants to go back to events at the elementary school so he can say hi to her. And in second grade, when they did their Booster-thon fun run, their color was purple, which is not a color that he owned anything. It was black or gray was everything. And so he was insistent we had to have something purple for the fun run, and so he got these like knee-high purple socks to wear. Very proud to wear it, had a great time. Fast forward this past August, and we're getting emails for who our teachers are going to be, and my daughter gets her email, and it's the same second grade teacher. And I'm not sure which of my two children was more excited about this. They were just elated. And so he starts sharing, oh, here's everything you need to know about her class, and she's so great at this, and you're going to love this. And then he goes and gets these purple socks that he's kept, and you're going to need these for the fun run. And yesterday they had their fun run, and sure enough, she wears these purple socks and goes out and has a great day and come home, and he's asking her, oh, how was the day? Did she wear that big purple thing? And a tutu, but to a 10-year-old boy, it was a big purple thing. But, you know, did she wear that thing? And did she get out there and run with you guys? And start sharing things that he remembers from her class. And then she's sharing about not only things that maybe are a little bit different now, but how she has this student teacher in her class that she loves, and she's so sad she's graduating in December. And he's telling her about all the things to look forward to and how much he loves intermediate school now and how she'll get to play an instrument. And I think sometimes there's a lot of things that we hear that are very angry and are very sad, but there's a lot of magic happening in our schools every day. And I realize that this is a very mundane and trivial thing, but I think any parent would probably say that there are no two kids the same. My children are completely different personalities, have different strengths, different needs. And for this teacher to have been exactly what they needed at that time is pretty remarkable. And I think that's happening every day, and I think that's attributed to not only our staff, counselors, teachers, but our campus administrators that lead that culture. I think, Dr. Knoll, you've led a culture that has created this environment to flourish. And so I just want to say thank you to you, to those who have supported our students. Again, I know it was something very small, but it just meant the world to see these two kids share just this love of teachers and of school. And thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn Nini.
Good evening. Transgenderism and sexual mutilation is no longer just a fad, but has evolved into a fact of life. It is now a full-blown industry set out to destroy children and to make themselves rich. In 2018, sex reassignment surgery and hormone replacement therapy was a $2.94 billion industry. In 22, it had increased to a $4.81 billion industry and is expected to reach $7.5 billion by 2030. In the schools across our nation and right here in Conroe ISD, there is a push to groom kids towards gender dysphoria and to convince them happiness is only to be found if they change their gender, which is a lie. And of course, this can only be achieved with dangerous hormone-altering drugs and surgical mutilation of their bodies. This does not have to continue in CISD if the individuals sitting before me, with the exception of 3, would have moral courage to push back against the education system and a minority group of LGBTQ and put a stop to this evil agenda. Again, we the majority come before you where we are no longer asking but demanding that all sexually explicit books and books that promote and celebrate gender dysphoria, transgender, non-binary, queer, gender fluid, gay, and lesbian be removed from all schools and all grades K through 12. Proverbs 14:32, the wicked is thrust down by his wrongdoings, but the righteous has refuge when he dies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorraine Rice.
President Hubert, School Board Trustees, Dr. Knoll, school personnel, parents, and community members here and online, good evening to you all. I am Lorraine Rice, and I come as a retired teacher in the district, a current substitute, a grandmother of CISD students, and a parent of 4 former CISD students, now grown. A concerned community member, but mostly this evening, I come as a Christian who cares deeply for this area in Montgomery County that we call CISD. As you can imagine, there are many areas I could dedicate this short time to, as there are many concerns. School safety, exhausted teachers, increased numbers in students with extreme emotional and educational needs, sexually explicit library books, lack of accountability for some students academically and regarding their behavior, the needs in our district to accommodate increasing numbers with staff and space, so many challenges. However, the main reason I have come this evening is to say that I care. We have to pull together, recognize where shortcomings are found, seek to find solutions, and proceed with good plan, because our students are worth it. They're worth all the effort, hard work, sacrifice, and compromises. I am part of a new group at my local church, Grace Woodlands, where we are committed to pray for schools in CISD and other local school districts. When one commits to pray for something, something happens in the heart and perspectives change. The causes of some of the issues become far less important than praying for solutions or ideas that can help in tough situations. For now, I will continue to read in the grandchildren's classrooms. I'm reading Arnie the Donut tomorrow, and eat lunch with them, encouraging principals, staff when I sub, and look for opportunities to share great things going on in our district. But I know my most important role is that of standing in the gap, taking time to pray for students, families, principals, teachers, and staff members, those in the administration at central office, and you, Dr. Knoll, and all of you school board members. Thank you for your dedication.
Thank you.
Truly High School.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm reading from Deuteronomy 30:15 through 20. Today I'm giving you a choice between good and evil, between life and death. If you obey the commands of the Lord your God, which I give you today, if you love him, if you obey him and treasure all all his laws, then you will prosper and become a nation of many people. The Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are about to occupy. But if you disobey and refuse to listen and are led astray to worship other gods, you will be destroyed. I warn you, here and now, you will not remain long in the land across this Jordan that you are about to occupy. I am now giving you a choice between life and death, between blessing and curses. I call heaven and earth to witness the choice that you make. Choose life. Love the Lord your God, obey him, be faithful to him, then you and your children will live long in the land that the Lord God has promised to our ancestors. I'm a retired educator, a mom, grandmom, soon to be great-grandmom. And when we were facing this challenge back in the 80s, we spoke to the school board in Katy Independent School District, and we did some research on the word education. It comes from a Latin word that means that is educe. It means to bring forth and develop latent or potentialities in the students. Words are containers. They contain life or they contain death. When I was in school, we had this little thing on the teacher's desk: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I think we might want to come back to something as simple as that. Words are creative, they are seeds. When we say brave little boy, we have an imagination that comes up. But then when we get too articulate with adjectives and adverbs, we put on a certain agenda. For instance, The Origin of Species with Charles Darwin. The real title is The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life.
Thank you.
Linda Long. Linda Long.
I'm sure you missed me when I was gone. Anyway. No, I'm sure you didn't. But anyway, it's good to be back. I'm sure you can pray that I don't come back anymore, but I won't. God won't listen to that. So anyway, it is good to be back. Just going to read this. I got this yesterday, and I took a picture of this that came in the mail, and here's just a little part of it. It says, according to ACT and according to a staggering 4 in 10 high school seniors failed to meet any of the college readiness benchmarks this year. In particular, an alarming 70% of students fell short in meeting mathematics standards. That was a little concerning to me. Then there was more of it there. And another one, it says, ACT scores continue to plummet. Universities are re-evaluating their admission requirements. That was a little concerning to me, quite concerning to me, actually. There's a growing number of institutions have embraced test-optional admission, signaling a departure from traditional reliance on standardized text. Notable universities, including Columbia University, Dartmouth College, Harvard University, New York University, Princeton University, Stanford University, and Yale, have dropped the requirement for the 2021 and 2022 application cycle. That was concerning to me. I thought, what in the world is happening? So there's a lot of things I think about, and of course I love the Word of God. It's the most powerful and truthful thing ever. I just read one scripture out of that today. It's found in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. We pull down every proud. That's the verse before that. Okay, verse number 2. Obstacle that is raised against the knowledge of God. We take every thought. Excuse me. That word, I love that word, thought, because it involves thinking, and you're not what you think you are, but what you think you are. Somebody got it. Somebody remembered that. Yeah, I like it. Okay. So, take into thought every captive, take it to make it obedient to Christ. I wonder how that would work out if we all did that. Just got to thinking about that.
How would it be if we all started doing something like that? And I've read this to you before, but I want to read it again. This is a quote that I found from Martin Luther, who was the founder of the denomination in which I was raised. Here's what he said. I am much afraid that the universities will prove to be the great gates to hell unless they diligently labor to explain the Holy Scriptures. I thought I had a lot more time. They do this to me every time, but I'm going to give this to you next time I come back.
All right, thank you.
I know you're excited.
Joanna McCrary.
Skip. Skip.
Tina Orbaugh.
You have good timing, Tina. You seem to be last like almost all the time.
I'm always late signing up.
Is that what it is?
Hi, I'm Tina, and again, a retired teacher also of 30 years or so. And this book was already read. Part of it was called Lily and Duncan. And it is about Lily Jo MacArthur, born Timothy MacArthur, is a girl. But being a girl is not so easy when you were born in a boy's body, especially when you're in the 8th grade. That bothered me. Duncan Dorfman, birth name, Norman Dorfman, is dealing with bipolar disorder and has just moved from the New Jersey town he's called home for the past 13 years. This would be hard enough, but the fact that he is also hiding from a painful secret makes it even worse. Okay, we're telling these kids that, we got to hide what all of their things that they are feeling. I've taught junior high 7, 8 years out of my 30, and I'll tell you, their hormones are changing. They don't know anything going on. They can't do anything. They're not old enough to do anything, but yet they're not young enough to obey mom and dad. They're fighting. They're finding who they are. They do not need any of these books. Now, we bring a book once in a while, Lily and Duncan. Okay, do we have to bring every single book we want out and read it? This is something I think that y'all can do, but I don't understand why we have to do every single book and read it and have you bring it out. But these are not good books for these kids, and we are grooming them. I don't have any idea why. This is the book. This is called the Founder's Bible, and this Bible should be read. It is not a story. It is all documentation. It is what we were founded on. It has the Constitution in this one. This was done by David Barton. The Constitution is what we were founded, this country was founded on. And what I'm trying to tell you is we were here. Our Constitution is the only Constitution that is only one Constitution. All the other countries had 7, 8, or 9. It's because we were founded by, we're the background of God, and we are presenting with God, and we need to put God back into our education. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to recall Elizabeth Morrison. Okay.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you for those who participated during our citizen participation. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. I have not heard from anybody to remove anything, so do
President,
we
I
have a
motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to 5A. Consider and approve the pre-K through 6 cell phone and smartwatch guidelines. Dr. Knoll.
I reminded y'all about turning on your microphones, and then I'm the first one that didn't turn my microphone on.
There you go.
My apologies. Dr. Medford will share information with us.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, Dr. Knoll. We are
going to talk about. Sorry, I was trying to stall until it showed up on the screen. We are here to share our pre-K to 6 cell phone guidelines with you today. So just to kind of remind you, back in August, the SHAC Mental Health Subcommittee came and made a proposal to you guys, a recommendation. And you guys gave us the charge to develop a committee to look at those guidelines, those recommendations, what we're currently doing, and come back to you. So that's what we're doing today. So in our committee, I will tell you, we had over 200 parents that were interested. So we ended up with a much larger committee than we originally planned, which was great. We did want to keep it to a number that would allow for collaboration and discussion. That's still hard when you get up to 53 people, but they've been doing a great job. So you can see here we have a committee made up with 25 parents. All 7 of the SHAC Mental Health Subcommittee that worked on that recommendation are a part of this committee. 13 teachers, 10 administrators, 3 counselors, 2 students. You can see the breakup based on the age of the parents, and then of course the feeder zones. We tried really hard to have a balance and a representation across our district. So if there's anybody here that serve on our cell phone committee, if you could stand for a second, we want to recognize you. They've been working hard. We actually had to extend our last meeting half hour because they're like worker bees. So we wanted to give them more time. So we're up to 2 hours a meeting now. So what was the process of selecting the committee? So the following members were appointed by the district: all the parents of the SHAC Mental Health Committee, our campus administrators, teachers, counselors, and our students. And then as far as our parents and community members, they submitted interest via a form that was advertised on the district website and through our social media accounts. We started sorting by feeder, then we looked at who had the least number of submissions, then we started looking at cross sections of who had students in different grade levels to make sure we had that balanced. We got to the point that then we had to randomly select them, tried to verify their grade levels and feeder zones, giving priority. We had to balance moms and dads, all the different things. So after that, we went back, kind of see where we needed to add some more students, more parents, so we had representation. They were added as random in those areas that we needed, and then we made sure we had community members for that outside perspective. We did look to try to sort out the Conroe ISD emails so that we made sure that they were parents, because we did have some interested teachers that are also parents. We tried really hard to do that, and then we wanted to give parents want to be involved, and we're excited about that, so we really looked for those that have not had the opportunity to serve on a committee. So lots of steps went into creating the committee, and like I said, they are hardworking and have been doing a great job. We have a group of district staff to support the committee's work. They are non-voting members in these stages and in this process, but they are there to support anything the committee needs. We have everything on our website. If you Google Conroe ISD Cell Phone Committee, it will pop up. Everything's on there, every agenda, all the summaries, every presentation, and then a list of the committee members are on there as well, the dates of the meeting. And then we got kicked off. September 7th was our first meeting. We had Dr. Spear present the same presentation she presented to you. Then we also had Tessa Stuckey, who's done a lot of parent presentations for us, share parenting in a tech-obsessed world to our committee. And then our coordinator for student support services, Denise Griffin, talked about foundations overview, how we work on developing those processes on our campus, and using that model to function as a committee. Then we gave homework, because all good school committees give homework. Our next meeting, we started talking about the technology TEKs we're required to teach, and then we really dove into the K-6 guidelines. We had a panel of principals share, and we started really working at taking our current guidelines, looking at SHAC's recommendation to bring towards you. So at the October 2nd meeting, we were able to review those guidelines, make a few tweaks to some wording based on feedback from parents and committee members, and then approve those guidelines to bring to you. So just a little overview. We talked about the survey. We presented those guidelines to our community. Parents, you can see their response based on their if they support them or not. We also used our survey to start gauging where we can educate and help parents. What's their level of knowledge and what are they interested in? So being able to check for screen time, they felt pretty confident in that. We have a new question on the next survey. A little hint is it's not quite as confident. So we found a place that we can help for our next survey. And then teachers as well, we gave them an option too, and then our campus administrators. So with all of that said, This was the final guideline recommendation. The school cell phone committee is recommending the following guidelines for students in pre-kindergarten through 6th grade. Cell phones and smartwatches may be used respectfully and responsibly before school and after school. Cell phones and smartwatches could not be used to capture video, audio, or images at school or on the bus. Cell phones and smartwatches should be set on silent mode and kept in backpacks, lockers, or other designated storage areas and should not be visible during school hours, including instructional time, reward time, free time, lunch, and in the hallways. The use of cell phone and smartwatches may be permitted in extenuating circumstances with permission from a staff member. An example is to notify a parent, a guardian, or a late bus. So this is almost exactly what the SHAC Mental Health Committee recommended, with some tweaks to add to make it more clear to what the expectation was. We added in some specific things like reward time and free time to make it clear for parents, students, teachers, and everyone. But this recommendation has almost the full gist from the SHAC Mental Health Committee. So the committee, after that was tweaked and we added all the verbiage based on the feedback, the committee voted, and you can see the result from the committee. So at this time, I'll take any questions, and we ask for your approval for these guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we have a motion first, and then we can ask our questions?
I motion we accept the item, consider and approve pre-K through 6th grade cell phone policy per the SHAC committee and Ms. Medford as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. Very good. All right, now we'll open it up for discussion. Any questions for Dr. Medford?
How realistic is it? Because you have parents. You have parents that spoke. You have parents in the classroom. You have a parent on a day-to-day basis. They want the school system, right, to enforce rules that they don't necessarily enforce at home, right? So how difficult would it be for the school district, pre-K through 6th grade, to execute on enforcement of this policy?
We have no concerns about enforcing it for pre-K to 6. It is, for the most part, what we have now, with a few tweaks. We see a little bit maybe in 5th and 6th grade where they allow them if they want to play a Kahoot or different things, but for the most part, we don't have cell phones out during instructional time pre-K to 6, so they feel pretty confident. There's some cleanup of verbiage but other than that, they feel really confident about it.
I understand. What about ramifications? What are consequences? Are we going to be able to enforce consequences, and do we have the capacity to enact certain consequences?
We do. They feel confident. They're doing that now. So lots of warnings. Then they move into, we apply Chapter 37, as you know, to any time we have consequences. So we take a lot of things into consideration. But most of the time, asking a student to put them away, they're pretty compliant pre-K to 6. And, we always partner with parents. We find that to be supportive. So our principals and our teachers feel very confident about it.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you.
I have a question. If this takes place this evening, when will it be enforced?
So we have a principals meeting tomorrow, so we'll let them know. They know, obviously, they've been involved in, which is what our goal has been, so that everyone understands, parents, teachers, that this is being talked about. So we've been really ensuring that. So we'll talk about it tomorrow, and then they'll get started at their next round of their foundations meeting. They'll communicate with that teacher, so it shouldn't take. And like I said, for the most part, this is what's happening at pre-K to 6.
And the students will be notified as well. They'll be warned. That,
They've been.
Okay, this is
we've
coming.
been talking. Yeah, it's been talked about. I know my own keep talking about it. So that's been our goal this whole time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are they allowed to wear the watches?
No, sir. They're going to have them. They can have them, but they're going to be put away. That was. I'll be honest. If we're talking about what was the most discussed item with pre-K to 6, teachers and administrators was the distraction of their watches buzzing during class, and so that was really more of what was discussed with pre-K 6 even than cell phones, which is why we made sure to be very clear in our information out to parents was that was being considered. So they'll be put away and silenced as well during the day.
Dr. Medford, one more question.
Okay.
What about students with special needs?
So those are always, any student with a 504 or IEP, those are always implemented without question.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question. How do we monitor cell phone use that is considered respectful and responsible before and after school?
So, defining words are always difficult, but those are one of the things that we teachers work on all the time, right? Or having those conversations and having to make those decisions. So we put that in there so that we have verbiage that we can use with kiddos and with parents. But yes, it's going to be up to the teacher to do what they do, is have those conversations with students and parents.
So we're responsible to monitor students outside of school?
This is like before the bell rings is basically what we're, you know how they're at school, but we haven't started our day. So those are the times, or at the end dismissal.
So
And then-
is
go
that
ahead.
30 minutes before or 30 minutes after school that we take charge of this monitoring?
So anytime they're on campus, we're monitoring students.
Okay, so anytime on campus.
Once they're on campus, we monitor kiddos for all of the things, and this is one as well, which occurs now also. Again, adding that verbiage in. Our current guidelines have all of those pieces in there. A lot of the words are still there. What we really worked on is getting away from the word generally. That's really where the conversation came on what we currently have.
And how are we going to monitor them? How are we going to know they're on their phone? How are we going to know that it's respectful and responsible? How are we going to know if we're not checking every student's phone or watch as they walk into our buildings?
Well, that's hard to do that every time, right? To know exactly. It's the same thing when they come in and they're talking to each other, right? We want to make sure they're respectful and responsible. So as we notice activity or we hear reports, we'll look into it and address it. Just like a student who maybe makes a bad choice with their backpack, right? And they have to come in and put their backpack in a certain place so that they don't, right? So teachers and administrators are really creative. If an issue bubbles up, they'll work with that individual student.
Did we consider asking the parents to turn off the data to any cell phone or phone once their student enters our building?
We have not specifically asked that. We've started, like I said, with a little bit of education that we've been rolling out, trying to use a survey to let us know what our parents need and want so that we're geared in the right direction. But we have not sent that out explicitly, no.
Okay. I would love to see a survey on that, if parents would be willing to turn off the data to help our teachers and administrators in this monitoring process. Because ultimately the parents are the ones that give them the cell phone and the watches. That's not something that we require to attend any of our schools. And so I would like to know if there's going to be parental participation in this.
Okay.
Thank
We'll work on
you.
that, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that when Trustee Williams mentioned it in the end, when he made his motion, he said policy. But this is a guideline, and to me, that means that a guideline is just a recommendation. It's what we see we'd like to happen. But if it's not a policy, then it's really not required. It's not easily enforced.
We look at it as such that it is enforced. We will update our handbook, and it will be listed in our handbook. We will notify parents that has been updated, and then those will be enforced on campus.
And then Trustee Wagman mentioned about turning off data. If they turn off data or do other limitations to the phones, does that affect? I know that I heard from a number of parents that were concerned about their children being able to use it in an emergency situation, meaning active shooter, a problem on campus, that type of thing. If we enact this, a parent wouldn't know that, I need to turn it on. There's something going on campus, you know?
So smartphones are amazing. We've learned a lot in the past few months about what they can do. And one of the things that we can help with is you can restrict who they can text within the app. So I can still text, I can have everything turned off, but I can text mom and dad or grandma. Or you could, we've talked to some junior high parents who've turned off text everything but texting to those people in Canvas, right? So getting that information out so they know that they can lock down all of the things that they wouldn't want their student on during the day, but allowing them to have that peace of mind.
That's what I wanted the parents to hear, that part of it. But also I did want to say I was one of the ones that was concerned at first, I'll admit it, about the committee and the makeup, and you answered all of my questions and explained how the committee was selected, and I wanted to commend you and your team of quickly getting this together. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, I call the vote. All those in favor of the motion presented by Mr. Williams, show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? All right, motion carries
Thank you.
unanimously.
Good job.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 5B, board member request discussion regarding board member use of cell phones during board meetings. That was obviously me. So if you may recall, in our last meeting, our last agenda item is always to take requests from trustees regarding future board agendas. And that was something that I had mentioned because I just kind of witnessed through our meeting as the board president, kind of my role is to monitor the flow of the meeting and make sure that we are moving along and doing the things that we need to and getting the business of the district done. And I've just noticed over the last couple of months that some of us have been distracted during the meetings and looking at phones and things of that nature. And I understand that we cannot control when people are going to send us messages. I mean, it's just out of our control. But I did want us to at least visit and talk about it, and I thought about this for the last month. This was something that I really wanted to put on the agenda. And then, of course, as we know, we got a Freedom of Information request, and when the Freedom of Information request came in, it was disclosed that there was some, just some concerning text messages that were going on while we were discussing agenda items. And I just felt like as a board member and as a board president, it's my responsibility to make sure that we discuss how our behavior should be on the board, and that we should be paying attention as best as possible with as least amount of distractions as possible while we're talking about agenda items, while we're voting. Our constituents expect us to be here and present and prepared. And I just wanted to open that up to conversation to see if anybody had anything they wanted to say about that as well.
Would you like to go ahead and discuss what the Information Act was?
The Freedom of Information?
Yes, what was discovered?
The Freedom of Information request that came in we were asked to disclose our any kind of text messages in relation to, and Ms. Gladys may correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody here, in connection to anything being discussed as an agenda item. And we were discussing a motion, and there was some counsel that came in on a text message that was disclosed, that it was some counsel from outside of our board, and there was some counsel that was being provided about how a certain vote would affect the agenda or the motion that was being presented. And I just felt like that was concerning. I felt like that was concerning. I felt like we just need to discuss how is it that we are how prepared should we be, and is it a concern of others that outside influences are being allowed while we're talking about specific agenda items?
I have a comment in regard to that.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tiffany. You were already scheduled.
Yeah, I'm a adult, and I don't really see a problem with constituents reaching out to us or communicating to any of us. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't really know that it's anybody's business what conversations I have on my phone, because I'm a grown adult and I'm not TikToking or cheating on a test or
Sure.
anything along those lines.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you're insinuating that the text that was, the one text that was noted, that affected the vote. And I'm happy to report that I didn't see the text during that meeting in that scenario. So I don't want the insinuation to be that text affected
And
a
you
vote.
can see by my vote that I clearly did not see it.
Okay.
And so I guess we're saying that was just a one-off. That was just a one-time thing. As elected officials, we are responsible for making our vote as our individual person, and not necessarily through the office of another representative or from somebody just necessarily in the gallery. We should be making our decisions individually as we have educated ourselves as much as we can.
I actually find that offensive that you think that I'm not able to come up with my own decisions.
I didn't say that. I just said we shouldn't be looking for text messages coming from the gallery telling us how to vote. That's
Nobody
all.
was looking.
Mr. President.
Yes, yes, sir.
We'll move on.
Unless someone else has something else.
I do have something.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, the one text didn't say anything about how to vote, and you're implying it did. And the second of all, I would like for you to tell any one of the 6 of us what we were not prepared on or where we were distracted or unable. You're implying that we are coming to a board meeting unprepared and distracted and so forth.
Sure.
And third, well, I'll ask the third thing when you're done.
Okay. So when I was calling for the vote, actually, Ms. Olenweller, your hand went up 3 different times for yes and for no. Like it was going up, and I'm trying to watch. It's on the video. I've actually, even before this, I went back. It's like, man, am I blowing this up? Am I being sincere in this? Because I am, and I'm not. I'm just. You asked me. I wasn't necessarily going to talk about it, but you did ask, and so the motion. I said all those in favor, and your hand went up, and then you looked in the gallery, and then it went down, and then those no, and went back up. I mean, it was just kind of. It was very confusing for me as a board president to make sure that everybody's doing that. And then earlier in the year, we were talking about votes for a book that was brought to us. And I was accused of not being clear and not stating motions over again, which I went back and looked at the video, and we were clear and we stated motions over again. So therefore, I don't know why there was confusion on that as well. So there have been a few times, and I have, I'm only saying this because you asked, but I have seen with my own eyes through the months as I sit here and run the meeting, cell phones light up and questions are on the cell phones, and then next thing I know, the question's being asked to somebody at the pulpit. And so I do believe our constituents have the ability and should have the ability to reach out to us. And granted, like I said, not everybody knows we're in a meeting, so they can certainly get to us at all times. But I think it's disingenuous to not at least acknowledge that the text message that came in was not from just a constituent. It was from somebody who, that was. I think that there was a little bit more meaning behind that. So that you asked, and that's my report.
So
I'm sharing with you what I saw.
So I will turn your word from last month to you. Allegedly, you are saying that I raised my hand, took my hand down, put my hand up.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask, as you asked Dr. Spear, for you to provide me the proof. Tell me where in the video you're referring in the meeting. Email it to the board and let me know, please.
Okay. It was
Because, sir, I take exception to the fact that I know Ms. Chase and Mr. Williams both use their phones, and Miss Trustee, I should be saying Trustee, Nelson has used their phones for all sorts of research and calculations. I calculated something last month and turned to Trustee Williams, and we acknowledged something that had to do with that was being stated here. And for you to assume that when we use our phone, it is because we are being fed information and we're lacking in preparation, which I find quite hilarious. I would just simply state that you are mistaken, and I just think that this was a waste of board time.
Okay.
So you go.
If I am mistaken, then that's fine. I'm just sharing with you the things that I've seen. You asked. I wasn't going to, but you asked, and so
you're grandstanding.
Please don't.
You're grandstanding up here, and you're using a political opportunity to state things. I think it's time, Trustee Williams, that we just move off this topic, as you have asked a moment ago.
So, Ms. Oldenwiller,
Thank you.
I wish you would not interrupt me while I'm talking. I'm not interrupting you. I allow you to speak. And I'm happy to show the record. You know, we can go back. I've read it and I've seen it. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes in to the presentation is when all that stuff went down. And I'm not, once again, I'm not saying we can't use our cell phones at all. I understand that we use our cell phones, or sometimes I remember we had a trustee that would bring a laptop and he'd bring his laptop and use it, and that's perfectly, I get it. I understand. I'm not trying to think that we should have any kind of ban or anything like that at all. I was asked to provide why I was bringing this up. I shared with my concern. You asked me to prove where it was, and I did. And look, if the shoe fits, we all have to wear it. I don't get on my phone anymore. I feel like I need to put my phone is in my pocket. It's in my pocket right now. I don't want to have the distraction. We're just trying to move the meeting along.
Is that another derogatory comment if the shoe fits because we're women?
Ma'am, I'm not talking about you.
Mr. President, let's move on. This is not going to be productive.
I'm happy to move on, but I don't mean, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to our board. That's all I'm talking about.
Unfortunately, I have 6 kids that are home alone, so I'm going to have this right here.
I'm not.
Thank you.
Once again, I have no problem with people using their phone. I was just talking about how we should use our phone, but that's it. I know you're a mother. I'm a husband. We're spouses. We're parents. I totally understand. I totally get that. So,
I would further encourage us to not waste time like this again moving forward.
Speaking of, when we get down to item number 9, is that 9?
Yeah, business of the district.
Oh, that's 13. I'm on a motion that we take that off of our ongoing meeting.
When we get there, we'll get there. And I apologize if you felt like this was a waste of time. There have been other board items placed on our agenda in the last that I have felt the same way, but I have kept that to myself out of respect to other board members. We don't always have to agree. But if it's something that's important to me, I want to put on there.
I request that we
and
not
if it's
do
something
this in
that's
the future.
I'm still speaking, and I'll stop and I'll let you talk. But if there's something that's important to you, even though it may not be important to me, I will always respect you and allow you to have that agenda item. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, respectfully, I think we've adequately addressed this.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay. Moving on. Item C, receive information and provide input for the development of the 2024-2025 school calendar.
Dr. Upshaw, one of the major tasks of our district level planning and decision-making committee each year is to bring a recommendation forward to the school board about our school calendar. And here we are. It feels like we just started school and we're already deep into looking into next school year's calendar. But I think this year is a bit of an exciting process because I think we may need to look at it through a bit of a different lens, and Dr. Upshaw is going to share with us some information to help frame the conversation for us as this is the very beginning of the process of what will be months of discussion.
Thank you very much, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. I do agree. It feels like we just received the first 9 weeks reports, and now we're talking about the beginning of school year. So you received some information from us this past week on this process, and I just wanted to share with you that the district level decision-making committee is a committee that's responsible as community and stakeholders and parents, along with teachers and educators and administrators that come together and receive feedback from you as the board in your direction, also from the community, and then they formulate back and forth this relationship, and then we bring several drafts to you to be able to help us make the ultimate decision of what we're going to choose to move forward. Our goal is to work through this process and hopefully have a recommendation to you by January the 16th. So I'll share with you the timeline. So tonight it's basically the overall information is our first step. Now, I did want to share with you that there are some additional processes that we'll have to have this school year because we're asking for some deeper looks into some comparison school districts and calendars that are out there. There have been school years that we have the district recommendation for the calendar in February, not necessarily January. So I just wanted to show you if that happens to be the situation, we have some tentative dates there. If we receive feedback from you in January to go back and adjust, then we are able to do that. I did want to allow Dr. Knoll to speak here about some highlights of our current school calendar and a process that's in place.
Yeah, so District of Innovation is something that you all may have heard about. We've had a District of Innovation plan for many years. We have just a couple of items currently on our District of Innovation Plan. It will expire this year, so we are about to kick off that process again of kind of reauthorization of that plan and looking to see are there any things that we will add to it. But one of the things that actually is the first thing we ever had on our District of Innovation Plan concerned school start date. By law, you can't start school until the fourth Monday of August. But if you're under a District of Innovation Plan, you can start earlier. Most districts are under a District of Innovation Plan and start earlier. So as we consider our calendar, if it is a consideration to continue to start prior to that day, even if we choose not to this year, we will probably still include that in our District of Innovation Plan moving forward, because you don't have to activate it, but you can if it's there. So when you see DOI, that's what it means. That's a process, once again, that we will start next month. It's a multi-month process, but we'll kick that back off because ours is about to expire.
So it's all about minutes in this process, and there's 75,600 instructional minutes and 1 million and a plethora of ways of figuring that out. So at the end of the day, the various variations, that's really the rule, that we have to be able to provide that amount of minutes of instruction for our children. We also, holidays are not set for any time we have state assessments, so on and so forth. And one of the things that we did a couple of years ago is that we implemented and just went ahead and built in 2 required makeup days. We have been very blessed that we have not had to, I don't even want to say it out loud because it might happen. But if it does, we're not required to be able to have to work on Saturday or do a work day or things like that, and it's appreciated by the community. So just wanted to share that for you. So here are lessons we've learned in the process. As we've done this plenty of years and had great experiences. So our calendar greatly affects our parents, our community, our constituents. We in the largest employer in Montgomery County, the way that we roll our calendar, when we shut down a school day, we have a holiday off, all of that impacts parents going to work, community members, and their business. We've had positive start with that mid-start week, especially in the world of transportation, right? So if you start on a Monday all week long versus if you start in the middle of the day, you kind of have the weekend to reset and do routes. We've excluded we have short weeks, 3 or less days. We know that, for example, if we have a week that has 3 or less days, attendance is poor. And so we've learned that process through the year. We've been very diligent, and if we're going to have a day, it's probably 1 day a week, because that whole week it does affect us. The week of Thanksgiving is popular. I don't think we will ever go back, right? So that's one of those things that I would just share with you as we move forward, that people really want it. People like 3 weekends in their winter break. And then we usually try to do spring break during the most popular week in the state of Texas. The only one up there to decide their week for next year is UT. I'm a little curious why Texas A&M's not up there yet, but they aren't. And with that, I do want you to know that it's an off a week. So it's later than it has been this week. However, though, you'll notice in some of the information we're asking maybe some thought process towards that. And the balanced semester is ever present. We've had calendars in the past that we go on holiday and then we come back to the same 9 weeks in semester. We don't want to send major projects over the holiday break. I don't think that'd be popular with our community. Things we know, we have currently 174 school days. The state standard's 180. We accomplished that by adding some minutes to the day. Our contract for our teachers, or the amount of days that they're required to work, is 187. So although the students have 174, and or you can do 175 or 176 or reduce it, the teachers have to come 187 days. We historically take these days off, and currently we do have a staff development waiver for 2,100 minutes. So that helps us with that 180-day requirement. We're allowed to give more professional learning for our teachers, which has been very popular. That professional learning sometimes is not only professional learning, but it is planning. As you know, teachers need the gift of time to be able to provide quality instruction for our students. So remember, Dr. Knoll mentioned the DOI process, that District of Innovation. Here's the start date for the last 15 years. So you can see that little asterisk right there in 2017, 2018. The school year prior to that, we went through that whole process. And then that next school year, we were able to plan a calendar on August the 16th. And then we just got earlier and earlier and earlier. And the earliest date was August the 9th. However, I thought an important thing to note is the comparison table that you received information on. We compared ourselves to 16 school districts. 9 of them started on the same day. So it's not like we're very far off from our constituents around, but that is something that was a trend this past year. All right, so here are some highlights and trends that we realized from the district level. They are asking, let me make sure, I apologize. This is highlights and trends we've seen in the comparison school districts, and this is really why we're starting early and coming to you. Sometimes we come to our school board in November. Some trends have shifted, and that's really affecting what is that last button, or not last button, but the last bullet on there. Variations in the staff development days, those days for teachers, whether you exchange the days or offer professional learning or have designated parent conferencing days, is really a trend, also along with week-long breaks in recruitment practices. So if neighboring school districts are offering this flexibility, it's being shared with us that that's something that is affecting us having the recruitment in our school district. Other things to note that are trends, the average number of instructional days is 171.4 among the 16 comparison school districts, and the average teacher day is 186. Fall and or winter breaks are combined with exchange days. So let me explain that. So let's say there's a winter or fall break. Normally it happened last week. You probably saw on social media that people were off. It's not a whole week off, it's 2 exchange dates. So in other words, when teachers say after school for staff development, or they did staff development during summer, they're allowed to exchange the day, right? And so that still keeps it under that requirement. So all that flexibility is being offered in other calendars. So the district level is asking you to consider, we met with them last week, they would prefer a later start date. They felt August 9th was too early. So August 14th or later, they want the flexibility in those days offered, right? Staff development work days, it's a work day, a planning day, teacher conference days. They want to plan a break each month. So however we figure it out, if they get a little break each month. And last year our calendar had no break in April. And we were like, we need a break in April. So there's this like odd day in April. And it was because of that request, 9 weeks without something, it's felt, especially in the long last 9 weeks. If we're going to extend the school day, remember you can extend the school day. So in other words, if you add 5 minutes to the day, it gives you 2 days off the calendar. So let's say we're at 174. If we add 5 minutes to the school day, we can then be at 172, thank you for the audience, 172. So that they're saying if we're going to do that, only extend the day by 5 minutes. Right? Kids, they already feel the day, as long as feedback for you to consider. They're asking you to consider moving spring break as well. And then the last thing that we want to ask your guidance on as we move forward, that they looked at last year's survey. And just speaking of survey, and that we really want feedback from our community and our constituents on how is it going. We did not offer a fall break last year because 70% of our community said we don't want a week off. So I think that's one of the things that also came back in the feedback from the committee when you're looking at the calendar. If we do have that time, we need to consider what that does to our community, right? If you do have a week off, then what does that do for childcare, for our community, our parents, our businesses, so on and so forth. So here are some survey options that they're asking us and they're giving us to consider as we move forward, and truly that was for you to review. But at this point, I'm just providing the information and really asking you, what are your thoughts before we move forward? That's why we're here a month earlier before we move forward. As we've seen these trends in our comparison schools districts, what is your guidance as we move forward on some of these things that you've seen, and then also on possibly how we're surveying our community as we get started?
Yes, if I can maybe share just a couple of things here, President Hubert. There's a couple of things we know about the calendar. Everybody wants to start as late as possible, end as early as possible, and take as many vacation days as we can get in the middle. That's just reality, but we all understand that we have minutes to meet. So it's and the math nerd in me calls the calendar a balanced equation, right? If you start later, you're going to have less vacation days, or you're going to end later, or you start earlier. So it just balances out. Other than, there are some things that we can do as far as adding a few minutes. And I think on the teacher side, really is where we have the ability to add some flexibility on these exchange days without it really impacting our families and childcare and those things in any way. But what we would like tonight is to hear, the district level planning and decision making committee does a lot of work on this, and they will bring you a recommendation. But they understand completely that the calendar is the board's decision. So they can bring a recommendation, but you all will choose the calendar. So they don't want to work and go down a path chasing something that you all can't support. So tonight is really what we're trying to hear is, are there any non-negotiables that we need to go back to that committee and say, like, hey, they're not going to support, coming back after Memorial Day. They're not going to support, this or that. If you have any of those things, really tonight is when we would love to hear those things. And then we'll be sharing a lot more information with you over the next months as we progress.
Okay. All right, any comments or questions?
No, I just say draft a calendar you can live with. Let me know, I'll send mine whenever you decide.
Dr. Upshaw, just real quick, the feedback that I've received is just a later start date. That's really the only thing that I've consistently heard from parents.
Thank you.
I'm in the same boat. Now, of course, this is my last year to be affected with a child in the district, so I'm going to lean more on Miss Nelson since she does have kids in the district. But yeah, that was one of the things I heard too. It was a bit early this year, so if we could push that back.
They probably asked for a later start time as well, but I understand we can't do anything about that.
And Dr. Upshaw, so this year I think is a great example that we can consider this coming planning period was the stress from heat by starting so early. And if you don't mind going back to the slide that listed by years. So, yeah, I didn't get a good look at this one. So now we're starting, we started on the 16th in 2017 to 2018. And this past year, we started almost a week sooner. So one common theme we heard was the stress on our transportation system, the stress on our buildings, our ACs, the kids, the teachers. So I would really focus on maybe pulling that back up toward that happy medium there. And another issue that I've heard about from teachers is on these staff development days, what's considered staff development versus staff training. Maybe you can enlighten me. But what are the requirements as far as the teacher being present, but the activity that has to occur? Because a teacher expressed, why can't we work in our room and get credit for the work we're putting in? Is that credit given to that type of work in their room?
So that actually makes a good point in the feedback that what we've seen in trends in other school districts and our district level committee is asking for us to look at. The one thing right now we have designated on our calendar is either a staff development day, that means required professional learning, right, or a work day. So if it's a staff development day, you're receiving training. We also do consider staff, even though we don't call it that, we also consider some campuses when they come together to plan, they're learning from each other, because that's what that process is, right? When you're planning, they can mix that and call that an exchange to it. But a designated work day is the day when I'm going and working in my room. So the staff development day is a day where they're either receiving training from the campus or what the campus is doing, or they're planning. And what we've seen in other calendars is that there is more staff development days, planning days, like they're designated, because I think that's what teachers really want. They want to huddle in a room with their grade level, and they want to help each other out, and work days. So right now we don't have that flexibility in options other than it's staff development or it's work day. So they're asking for that variation that you're mentioning.
Is there a flexibility with a work day about what type of work is completed?
If it's a work day, it's not a required professional learning training, and they're not required to meet as planning.
So typically they don't meet to plan.
Say that again?
Do they typically not meet to plan on those days, or those days?
If it's a work day, they do not. They're working in their room, making the copies, cutting the lamination, all the little things.
Okay, how many work days per year calendar?
Look at our calendar.
It's two, right? One at the beginning of each semester?
I think it's,
And while you're looking, those work days,
We have
Dr.
3.
Knoll, those are like hands off. No, they get the
Yeah,
full day.
the only time that they, occasionally, you'll have a principal that they may trade time. So like if that work day was gonna be the very last day, before school starts, they may trade an hour or so. Like, if they need to have a meeting on that day, they trade an hour back, but it's that full amount of time is protected. So sometimes they'll vary the hours, you know, trade 2 hours on Monday for 2 hours on Tuesday. That happens occasionally.
so we have currently 3 work days
Okay.
on our calendar, at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the semester, and at the end of the year.
So one per semester and then one in between.
Mm-hmm.
How many staff training development?
Staff development days that we have are 10.
So can we exchange some of those?
We can exchange some of it if we want. That's what we're asking for, flexibility. And then with the exception of the 2,100 staff development waiver, that has to be professional learning. So whatever that equivalent is in time, but yes, we can. We can designate them as professional learning days, planning days. We can designate them as teacher conference days, or we can even designate them as exchange days. So in other words, I've already done professional learning in the summer or after school, and here's my 6.5 hours. I don't have to come to work. That's what they're asking.
But can we I don't think that was clear. Can we exchange work days or staff training days for work days is my question.
We can, as long as we don't exceed, we have to have a minimum of 5 staff development days, minimum, to meet the 2,100 hour piece that we apply for that waiver. So we'd have to have that for sure.
Mhm.
So that we couldn't change. Beyond that 5, I think there'd be flexibility.
So the other 3
could be work days where
5
they could be, or we could designate them as exchange days, which a work day is valuable. An exchange day is even better because I may not have to come if
I think that there's some flexibility there is what we're seeing. So I would like to see that taken into consideration for our teachers.
That's what we needed to hear. Thank you.
Are some of those hours or minutes, are they capable of being collected from staff meetings? So a lot of times administration comes forward and does, well, at least when I taught, there were some training sessions that happened
Like
during
after school?
After school or before school. Some schools do their staff meeting before, some do them after, whatever. But those minutes, hours, whatever, do they get counted towards their required 5 days?
They don't currently. That's what we're asking. If
Okay.
we're okay in saying you can trade it out and not come to work, right? So that's something that we've never done because, being the largest employer in a huge district, what we do is a big
Matters.
impact on our community, right?
Right.
So we've always made sure that we stuck to what was put forth this, but that's where we're asking if we can be offered that flexibility. So let's say for 5 staff you have 6 meetings, right? Then you trade that in and they're all staff development days, then they can be. We do that currently right now. There's required training that we have to do. We call it Safe Schools. And it's an exchange day. We have 1. And if we get all our stuff done in the summer, our teachers do, then they don't have to come to work on that day. But we're asking for more flexibility. I do also want to just note that many of our calendars in our comparison school districts are able to start later in the calendar year, but they do teachers come after Memorial Day. But what they come after Memorial Day are exchange days. So that's the flexibility that they're asking. If we do start later, remember we still have to do 187 days for teachers, but are we able to count all those things that you're saying so that they don't necessarily have to come if they've worked that process?
For me, my personal request would be to highly prioritize. I'd love to see teachers get more flex days off, but I would rather them have more dedicated time for the things they need to plan for, work on, and do in their classrooms. They don't have enough of that right now. So trying to free up as much time as they need, their teams need, is ideal for me. I'd love to see them have more days off, but we do have minimums, so let's try to get them as many minutes, hours for them to be preparing not to be dedicated towards other directions that they're being pulled in.
So I hear, let me see if I'm correct, in time for planning and time for working.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll focus kind of two different dynamics here on this calendar, truthfully. Like we'll try to really focus on the student side calendar, and then once we can get that kind of locked in, then we can begin to work these staff days around it and figure out which can be exchanged, what can be a work day, what can be a staff, and then build that around the student calendar, and then hopefully that'll help us in the process. So thank you for the feedback. That's
Absolutely.
great.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you very much. All right, it's 8 o'clock. We're going to take a little 5-minute recess, a little bio break. Be back in 5 minutes. Again, time is 8:15.
Can I make, do you mind if I make this one quick announcement before we go to the next agenda item?
Sure.
I just received a text from Dr. Horton, and today is UIL marching band district competition, and he just texted me to tell me that all 6 of our 6A high school bands have advanced to area, so proud of them.
Very good. Very good. All right. Okay, moving on to item 4D, which is consider and adopt a resolution in recognition of Dyslexia Awareness Month. Dr. Knoll.
All right, we're going to ask Dr. Sharon Henry to come forward. We have an amazing dyslexia team, and she's going to talk about them. But before I let her talk about them, I'm going to talk about her because she's wonderful, and that's a universal feeling that I hear from parents, advocates, champions of kids, our staff internally that work with you and that you help them. You make a huge difference every day, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. Thank you for recognizing dyslexia this month. Your support is greatly appreciated and allows us to provide quality dyslexia instruction and assistance to over 4,400 students in Conroe ISD. We continue through our incredible special education assessment staff to identify approximately 80 to 100 students each month with dyslexia and related disorders. Additionally, we've had over 80 students with dyslexia and related disorders transfer into Conroe ISD since August. With your continued support, we've been very fortunate to fill our dyslexia specialist position this year with Blanca Cuestas. And if I could ask her to come forward. She is absolutely amazing and has contributed so much to our department. She's highly qualified as a licensed dyslexia therapist with the state of Texas, a certified academic language therapist, a diagnostician, and she is bilingual. She is truly one of a kind. Thank you so much for supporting this position and allowing us to fill it.
Absolutely.
She has been a tremendous addition to the dyslexia and the special education departments as we navigate House Bill 3928. She actually is on approximately 2/3 of the assessments that come through, and she is our dyslexia person for all of those assessments. So she looks at them through the lens of dyslexia. So we are extremely fortunate to have her. Thank you for continuing to support the dyslexia department financially. This year, you have dedicated $5.7 million to dyslexia, of which $2.9 million comes from the state dyslexia funding. We currently have 59 elementary and intermediate interventionist, and at least one special education teacher trained in our dyslexia intervention at each elementary and intermediate campus. In addition, we have one dyslexia interventionist at each secondary campus, and at least one special education teacher trained in our dyslexia intervention at secondary campuses. I can remember when I first took this job in 2009, we had 11 for the whole district. And so we have grown and we have learned, and we could not do this intervention and provide this intervention with fidelity without that additional funding that you have provided for us. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. A few years ago, we added a systematic phonological awareness resource and have seen tremendous growth in our young students' ability to hear and manipulate sounds in our spoken language. We have already seen a double-digit increase over the last few years in our first and second grade reading levels. It was a tremendous addition, and again, it was because of funding from you. The Teaching and Learning Department has worked tirelessly this year to implement a new systematic phonics resource for our district. We expect even greater results moving forward, and again, we thank you for providing funding for that as well. Finally, the job of a dyslexia interventionist is incredibly fulfilling while also being quite challenging. Our dyslexia interventionists are second to none in their dedication and their knowledge of dyslexia. I know that your recognition tonight and your support every day is appreciated by them all. So on behalf of them, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Henry. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to turn the time over to Mr. Williams to read a resolution.
Thank you. Brings me absolute delight to read this resolution of the Conroe Independent School District. Whereas the Texas Education Agency and the American Institutes of Research identify dyslexia as the most commonly diagnosed learning disability affecting the education of our children. Whereas dyslexia, along with its related disorders such as dysgraphia, dyscalculia, developmental auditory imperceptions, dysphasia, did I pronounce it right? Dysphasia, specific developmental dyslexia, developmental dysgraphia, and developmental spelling disability is the most common learning disability and affects 80 to 90% of all individuals with a learning disability. Whereas the achievement gap between typical readers and dyslexic readers occurs as early as the first grade. Whereas early screening for and early diagnosis of dyslexia and its related disorders are critical for ensuring that individuals with dyslexia receive focused, evidence-based intervention that leads to fluent reading, the promotion of self-awareness and self-empowerment, and the provision of necessary accommodations that ensure success in school and in life. Whereas the difficulties associated with dyslexia and its related disorders require an enormous amount of time and energy on the part of students, parents, guardians, teachers, paraprofessionals, and specialists to address the learning needs of the student. Whereas the Conroe Independent School District is committed to addressing the specific needs of dyslexic students and its related disorders by training teachers, employing dedicated dyslexia specialists, interventionists, instructional coaches, and other highly trained professionals or highly trained personnel, and providing resources to parents to address the educational needs of the students struggling with the difficulties of dyslexia and its related disorders. And whereas October has been declared as Dyslexia Awareness Month, therefore be it resolved that the Conroe Independent School District Board of Trustees does hereby honor and observe October as Dyslexia Awareness Month and pledges its continued support to students, parents, educators, tutors, researchers, and specialists seeking to provide the highest quality of education to dyslexic students. Resolved on this day, the 17th day of October, 2023.
Very good. Do we have a motion to accept this resolution?
Motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
Second.
There you go. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or conversation?
I did have a point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
My wife's taught special education for the last 20 years, and I have a 16-year-old son who's dyslexic and come through this school district, and I like to give kudos to Ms. Garrison over here and Paula Kopleski over here, who did a phenomenal job in working with my son. And I've had multiple kids in the district for over 17 years. I have continued to advocate for my son, advocate for dyslexia. What I don't want to do is have any educator, any teacher feel that I'm being overbearing or overly persistent, or they feel intimidated for me or anyone else specifically trying to advocate for their cause. So if that was ever the case, I apologize. I've seen it happen. I see it happening. And I just want to make sure you guys know that you have my sincere gratitude.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? You know, I'd like to show my support for this as well. I'm glad that we're doing this. I know there's been a lot of work done at the district level. I know Ms. Olenweller has done some fantastic work at the state level as well, and I know she's going to recognize some people here in a little bit as well. And I'm grateful for the strides that are moving forward. And obviously we need to do more, and we're trying to do more. And the number one concern that I get is the barrier to entry to teaching, and I know that we want to work through that. You know, that was Ms. Gambino, her comments. I appreciate you coming and bringing those comments up to our board to shed some light on it, because I understand your frustration. We spoke about that, and I was very grateful that you did win your due process, because as you know, we're not part of that, but that was something that I think was a good stride, and I appreciate your comments on that. And I appreciate all the work that we're doing, and would like to press that we continue to move forward and do more and see more kids.
And Mr. President, I'd be remiss if I left out Dr. Audrey Young for State Board of Education for all the work she did and advocate for this bill and getting it across the finish line.
Very good. Okay. No other thoughts? We'll vote on. Do you want to do it now?
I want to say
Okay.
thank you to Dr. Henry and her team. They are stretched so thin.
Mm-hmm.
They're everything from the having to be a diagnostician all the way through the services being presented, and those teachers doing continuing education to learn new programs and their masters and all these things. They're doing all of that on top of their daily duties that take them far longer than the hours of the day. So I just want to recognize that as well.
Very good.
Yeah, maybe if I could highlight that too, just the work of Dr. Henry and her team, and as mentioned, their dockets are now full. So we have grown to the point that everybody that we have on staff is full, and as you heard her mention, we add about 100 kids per month, and we still have 7 months left of the school year. So that's going to be, and I don't believe there are really many dyslexia experts left out there to hire at this point. So they are spread thin, and unfortunately it's going to become an even bigger challenge as we move forward.
Okay, I'll call the vote then for this resolution. All those in favor of the resolution being adopted, show by the uplifted hand. Any opposed by the same sign? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn the time over to Ms. Olenweller.
I am going to come out this way because sadly, as you heard,
Microphone.
Yeah.
As if you need a microphone.
The people online.
All right. As you heard, I did go back and forth to Austin almost every 10 days trying to work towards helping get dyslexia awareness out there and some changes with HB 3928. And I do want to state that I promise you as a district, I will fight just as hard to try to get more funding for us. I promise you. So it's, as a parent of a dyslexic child as well, with multiple of these learning disabilities that you read, this is very near and dear to my heart. Unfortunately tonight, I wanted to honor all of these families, but we were only able to have 2 of them here this evening. So I'd like to ask the Gambino and the May, well, Miss Gambino and Miss May, if Mrs. and Mrs., would you please come forward? I want to recognize that there's the Tassin family, the Franklin family, the Goreska family, And they are only, come stand up here with me, they are only a few of the families that took a stand and drove to Austin and advocated. I will say I was very proud that Conroe was the biggest representation of advocates there. So I'm very proud of that. But for 2 legislative sessions, these families drove to and from the state capitol. Let me tell you, that's grueling. You get tired of making that run. And most of them, they did it up in a day and back in a day. But there were times they had to spend over. They did all of this on their own dime. They saw a need, and they took up the gauntlet. And I'm telling you, if you've never been a part of the legislative process, it is a gauntlet. It is rough. But with October being the Dyslexia Awareness Month, the board granted me the time. I wanted to bring awareness to this. These ladies, these families have worked tirelessly to help remove stigmatisms associated with dyslexia. Dyslexic children are not stupid. They're not mentally challenged. They're not trying hard enough. They just have to learn through a very sound phonetical process. And they're usually some of our smartest students. So I can attest to that as my daughter, for my daughter. Nicole May and Kristen Goresko established a community where parents could share, come together safely, and during confusing times seek input. They also started a Montgomery County or MoCo Dyslexia Partnership and held their first town hall event back in February, where they brought in a panel of experts, and statewide experts gathered to share, including our Texas Education Commissioner, Mike Morath. They held a question and answer time, which we wish could have been 5 times as long. This group and these families, in the 88th legislative term, they saw a revision of the Dyslexia Handbook. In the 88th legislative term, they joined forces with District State Representative Steve Toth to get the Beckley-Wilson Act passed through the House. And then with Senator Brandon Creighton's help, it made it through the Senate. Representative Toth authored the bill, and with the help of these families and Representative Toth, they got, this is really impressive, they got 17 representatives to sign on and 6 senators to sign on as co-authors, I think is how it's stated. That is a major feat. The group before you spent countless hours coordinating, planning, driving back and forth to Austin, walking the halls of the Senate and the House. That's grueling. Bringing awareness to the bill, dropping off treats and flyers and information, answering questions. These parents were rock stars, guiding their children and then getting out of the way for their children to learn to be advocates for themselves. The parents took the brunt of the work and the heartache as the process continued, and many times we thought the bill was going to die, and it did. I'd contact people, start praying, pray, because it was very serious. There were times it should have died at least 6 times, I'm pretty sure. Most notably, I would like to point out, it never would have made it to Public Education Committee for even discussion had Representative Toth not taken to the mic at the back of the room and started killing everyone's bills, most bills that were trying to come to the floor or come to committees as well. He stood up and just started killing them. And then that meant they could never go to a committee. And he stood there killing them until someone stopped him and asked what was going on. And he said, you need to assign this bill to Pub Ed. And when he explained it, they got it out into Pub Ed committee. And the parents and the students testified. The students learned a great deal through this process. And it's a late night and they couldn't be here, and I'm going to finish up with just stating that they learned how to look people in the eye, shake hands, and advocate for themselves. They learned to deal with the occasional rude responses they received. That's critical in life. That is a critical key thing to learn. They learned to deal with they learned how a bill comes to life and how it makes it through the halls of the Capitol and how easily it can die. I personally saw them sit or stand in an office before a senator or a representative and carry on conversations about their stories and their struggles and why the bill needed to pass. And most importantly, They learned to not be a victim. They were more than what their title was as far as their diagnosis. The Representative Toe supported these families in many ways that included opening his office as a gathering location, drop zone for supplies. He fed them, and most importantly, he stood in the gap with them. He mentored the students. He set up appointments with other reps and senators for those students. And several months later, because it did take several months, HB 3928 was passed. And this is the most important piece after what the kids learned from it. HB 39 passed out of the House and the Senate to the floor for a vote, where it received a unanimous vote out of both chambers. That's critical. And I thank you ladies so much for all your work and for standing in the gap for others.
Thank you, Ms. Odenweller, for mentioning those families that work so hard. I think we would be remiss if we didn't also mention Miss Stacy Evans, who is also a formidable little spirit here in our community when it comes to dyslexia, as well as Miss Ashley Fairley. Both of these ladies also went to Austin and have worked tirelessly for dyslexia here in our community. So thank you.
Did we vote on that, Mr. President? Did we vote
on
on the resolution?
We did.
Okay.
We
After
did.
that political rally, do you want time for yourself?
No.
You
No,
sure?
we're ready to move on to the
Okay.
next item.
I would love to find out if we could swap out the legal B, the request to review and consider revisions to local board policies EFA and EFB to now, if
Sure.
possible.
Yeah.
Just
if we
because
don't
in
have
an
any-
effort.
Yeah, I think we can move that up.
Who are we
Is
moving
that
up?
okay?
We're moving up?
Moving up, 10B, board member request to review and consider revision of local policy EFA. We'll just move that up to now. Ms. Gladys, is that, okay, very good. All right, moving on to item 10B, board member request to review and consider revision of local board policy EFA.
Mr. President?
I was going to turn the time over to Ms. Nelson. This is her to introduce it, but go ahead.
Great, thank you, President Hubert. As parents continue to bring questionable books, I feel that it is important that we put something in place sexually explicit in the definition. So I have worked really hard with Ms. Gladys. I was able to pull Katie ISD's policy, and then Ms. Gladys and I, Ms. Gladys did more of the brunt of the work, but kind of tailored it to our district and our needs. And then she was able to get that out for other trustees' review and comments. So I appreciate your hard work and hope that we can come to a resolution.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
We've had multiple board meetings as well as a board workshop regarding our library books policy. We've discussed this topic ad nauseum. That being said, I don't see any additional value in us discussing that topic today. So I want a motion that we table this discussion.
Hearing no second to the motion, the motion fails. We will continue moving forward with this.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I'd like the motion that we make no changes to our current policy as written.
Okay. Any seconds for that? All right. Having no second for that, that motion fails as well.
Let's do it.
Okay. So review and consider revisions. So could you point out just a couple of, I did read through it. Is the revision that we have, is this the one that we received last week, or is this the one we received
Maybe Ms. Gladys, could you explain the two colored copies that
We've
you
had
have?
a couple, so I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one.
Sure. So yes, I've sent several things back and forth to you guys. So I put, to maybe make it easier, colored coded copies there. The green one is the latest revision, starting with the Katie policy as the base, and then making changes that were not substantive to it, but to maybe align the wording to make it more streamlined, more user-friendly. And then the yellow policies are the current Katie policies as they are written in their policy manual, so for comparison purposes.
Ms. Gladys, did you give consideration to Willis ISD's policy, Spring ISD policy, the Aldine ISD policy? Is Katy ISD policy the gospel for us to use here at CISD?
I did not. I was asked to look at the Katie policy. It's the one I looked at.
I think that it's worth noting that in a comparison with our current policy, EFB local, it mentions harmful materials and obscene materials as listed in the Texas Penal Code 43.24 and 43.21. But the latest edition of sexually explicit materials, which is defined in the Education Code 33.021, gets us aligned, and I think it's the missing part that we've had in our policy. And there are a few other things in here that are in addition to what we have listed. So I hope that trustees had a moment to look through it, and certainly here to do this together and make this work.
Ms. Gladys, how long has this current policy served this district?
Conroe ISD's current policy.
I think we adopted it in August of last year, August, September.
Correct.
So I've been on the board for the last 11 years. School books has been the least of our concerns. Dr. Knoll, is that your understanding of the situation, that school books is more precedent, some of our other prevailing issues? School books?
We have a lot of issues that we deal with every day. So if it's the board's concern, it's our concern.
Understood. So when the board concern, I mean, I understand it was presented as if the constituents' concern is about school books. I don't see that. I see that there was a concerted effort, received several emails. That effort was generated by one individual who seeks attention, whose whole expectation is to cause the demise of the public schools districts, public school system in general. And of those emails, I think I received 80, 90 emails. So I don't see that as a public concern. At the most, 80, 90. I don't see that as a serious public concern, a material public concern about school books, being that each one of those emails is pretty much templated from this individual.
Again, I'm capable of thinking for myself, so this is certainly not prompted by anybody's ideas. Katie, I think, is a great example for us because it's similar in size, and it's putting us in compliance with HB 900.
I understand. I think I'm in the best position to give my interpretation of what my constituents was like. As it relates to, matter of fact, I got a question for you. So we received, give or take, what, 80 emails?
I don't know how many you received.
It's 50, 60 emails.
I think I received probably 200, over 200 emails about this, both for and against.
So let's just say half against? Half against? I tell you what.
I don't know. I mean,
just bear with me.
I don't think so, but go ahead with your point.
Bear with me, I'll make my point. Dr. Povich, you're a mathematician, aren't you? So let's assume we got, you gonna calculate it right quick? Just make sure you do the numbers for me. Let's assume we have 70,000, a little over 70,000 kids in the district. 70,000 kids, assuming they have two parents. Let's make that denominator 140,000. We're on point. 140,000. Give the numerator 100. What percentage you come up with? So we got 100 emails out of, what was that? 100 emails, about 140,000, just parents of students.
I don't know that this number is relevant.
It's relevant to me. So not 1%. Coincidentally, that's probably the probability of you finding an inappropriate a book of the millions of books that we got in our libraries.
You must not be reading your emails.
0.001. So that's not even 1% you just mentioned, right? Not 1%.
If we're talking about numbers, I would love to talk about the number of voters we had. I believe I had about 43,000 voters vote for me in a group of 6.
Clock's right. A broke clock's right once every day. I've been sitting here 11 years, 3 terms, unopposed.
If I may,
What that have to do with the price of tea in China? I don't understand that.
I understand. If I may, I've been trying to be diligent on this as well, and so if I could ask just a couple of questions as well. Adding, from what I see, our current policy lists, let me back up for a second. Our current policy has in Penal Code 43.21, and then, what's the other one? The two penal codes, obscenity and, okay, and then, but what we don't have in our policy is really the Education Code 33.021, correct?
Defining sexually explicit materials.
Right.
That's one of the things that's not mentioned.
Okay, just work with me on this one so far, because I know I've got a couple questions. So my question is, by adding this educational code, which I'm not against at all, adding that in here, it's part of the educational code. Do we adhere to the educational code already?
Well, if you recall, that bill is kind of in litigation right now, and what that definition applies to is the way the vendors were required to rate their books,
Okay.
and that's on hold. And so, yes, we comply with the law the moment it's passed, but it becomes effective regardless of whether it's in a policy or not. And that will be in, it will be in the legal policies, EF.
Okay, so I don't.
I have the Texas Education Code 33.021 right here, and it was adopted September 1st, 2023.
Okay, that's so what I'm saying is we can I don't see any reason why we can't have that in this policy as well. It strengthens our policy, but it just, I guess it reconfirms, right? It reconfirms that, it's in the Texas Education Code, which we follow, but it is also in our policy enforced twice. So I kind of like that. I don't see where there's any issues of enforcing, because we're already enforcing it now. We're going to continue to enforce that. The other question I had was the elementary school, on the no material in elementary school library shall contain depictions of sexual acts or simulation of such acts, and it goes on. We define elementary schools as K through 6, correct? So would our schools are set up that way? Like, we have some that are flex, and we have some that have a 5th and 6th. Would we have the ability? Is that in the new revision here, and would we be able to enforce that as well?
We did modify that provision to include pre-K through intermediate in that section.
Okay, very good. And then the other one, if you don't mind me asking, I have two more?
No, go for it.
Okay, and then the other one is when it comes to the committees, was there a rendition? I believe the Katie policy, we have a policy where we have a committee that we kind of call when it's time. And the Katie policy had committees called ahead of time. And I believe I read in there that the committees on the Katie, that the people that were on that committee, parental and district employees, that their names were kept confidential. But I believe we found out through, I don't remember who, I think it was Paxton that sent a letter saying, hey, we have to disclose the district names. So is it written in the new one where we would still continue to have we have, it's very similar, but it's different because we don't keep those names confidential.
I think I changed it to the parent names to be confidential
Okay.
because that is the law.
Okay. And then my last one is let me see if I can find it. At the board meeting, the board member who, let's see here, in accordance with board policy, any board member may request an agenda item for the board's next regular meeting agenda to review an instructional material for removal by notifying the superintendent and board president. So right now, as a constituent has an issue that they feel the book needs to be reviewed. The book goes to a committee. If they don't like that, how the committee determines the book, they can go to a level 2. Level 2 is a hearing with with somebody else. And if they don't like that, then it comes to the board. If I'm reading this correctly, and I could be wrong, does this mean that a board member would be able to bypass all of those things and go directly to the board for a vote?
There's several provisions in there, and some of them could happen directly from the board. In the Katie policy, a board member could bring a book directly to the board, or a board member could appeal the decision of the reconsideration committee and skip level 2 that's currently in our policy. So there's kind of several different mechanisms in there for a board to take action prior to a level 3 hearing.
So I would, if you would entertain it, I don't have any issues with any of this stuff. I like the idea of strengthening it, but I just have a little bit of an issue with that, because I want to make sure that parents have a say-so, just like, you know, that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I would like to point out that Katie's policy has it where 2 board members
Right.
can work in concert. So we did change that to adjust it as per Mrs. Gladys' recommendation. I mean, I think it, well, I guess I would just start by asking, I recently heard you say that you removed 100 dirty books from CISD libraries. So I guess what's the difference between that, because I'm not familiar with these books that were removed. It didn't come to the board, or it didn't come to me at least.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of where that falls into play, because if it's not in policy, then it really doesn't exist.
Right. What I was referring to is the over 100 books that have been removed from the district because they didn't meet the district's selection criteria, and those books are listed on the school website. So when I said, hey, we've removed these books, that was what I was talking about.
So I looked, I didn't see 100, and also I've heard you say it twice now that you personally removed. First it started out as 55 books, and then it was 100 books.
Yeah, I said as board president. As board president, that's what we have done. And it's a true statement. As board president, while I've been on the board, we have removed those books.
So then
but they were about the selection criteria, right? It wasn't... The selection criteria is different. If a book does not meet the selection criteria, then it doesn't belong. And the wonderful things that has happened is you and other board members have brought some awareness to our libraries. So what has happened, which is the good thing, is our librarians in our district and people have said, well, let's start combing through. And as they've combed through, they have found books that have not met the selection criteria. So those are the things that I've been talking about. This is different. This is a book that's being challenged, a book that has met the selection criteria. It doesn't break the penal codes, and I'm telling you how I interpret it. And then somebody says, I want to challenge this book. I want to challenge this book. So a constituent has to go through a process. The way I read this is a board member can say, I'm going to bypass the process and just bring it right to the board for a meeting. What I'm asking is, would we at least be able to put something in there? And Ms. Gladys had several different suggestions, and we talked about it. And I like the suggestion of not necessarily taking that away from a board member, but if a board member finds a book that they feel needs to be challenged, that book goes to a review committee and then come to... That's all I'm saying is just is have the board members follow the same criteria as just a regular Joe Q public in our district. That's all I'm asking.
For the committee, you mean? For the reconsideration committee?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, for the book to go through the committee.
Well, isn't that what you bypassed with the SHAC committee?
I'm sorry. What do you mean?
So
Look.
No, I want to hear that. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I'm just saying that to me, having one board member, so you have an option. So if you see someone that comes to you with a book and brings it to you and it's so foul or whatever, you don't know how it got in, and who knows how these books are getting in, but it's so foul, it would then, you have a choice as a board member. You could then take the book to this dais and put it up for a vote. Or you could just say, take it to the challenge. And again, I don't see much of a difference between doing with the one board and actually bringing it for full transparency to the dais for a vote versus you going in and whatever you did to get them removed.
So once again, I'm talking about, and for clarity, I'm talking about books that don't meet the selection criteria. I'm not talking about books that have made the selection criteria, but parents are struggling. Like for example, some of the books that were read today, I haven't heard of any of those books. I don't know if they meet the selection criteria, but if they do, those parents have the right to say, I'm going to challenge this. I think this is an inappropriate book. So those books, I didn't touch. I'm talking about the school district. We reached out to the school district. Allow me to finish.
Okay.
We reached out to the school district and said, books that don't meet the selection criteria, can you please go through those and remove those books? And the district said, yes, we'll take that challenge and we're going to do it. What you're saying, if you're saying a book that is so grotesque, my question is it so grotesque and it and it doesn't meet the selection criteria?
That's right.
Okay, then that book doesn't need to come to a committee.
So then the
That's my
process would
point.
work. If this process is in place, then the
100%
process will
agree.
work.
I'm certainly not arguing that point, right? I think any of us can do that, can bring a book and say, hey, I don't think this book meets the selection criteria.
Right.
Can you please check to make sure this book meets the selection criteria? I don't think the board needs to be involved in that process. That we already have a process for that. What I'm saying is a book that, the way I read it, a book meets the selection criteria, and then a board member says, I don't like this book for whatever reason they feel that is appropriate, and they're going to bring it directly to the board for us to vote on, and it did not go through any kind of process for a committee of parents, because we want our parents to be involved, and we've created this parental committee to review a book, but a board member is bypassing that, which a constituent can't do. We're writing in a policy. It's like rules for thee, but not for me. Like, I get to do what I want to do. I can pull this book, but you can't. And I'm just saying, I would entertain an idea that if we did find a book that met the sex selection criteria, and we still were uncomfortable with it, that it would at least go through the parent-involved committee before it came to the board for a level 3. That's what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
Can I comment?
Sure.
Okay. One, I'm deeply concerned because it seems the board once again is overstepping their bounds. And I think what we're having here is some subtle political debates, which I'm not necessarily want to be entertained by. I'm also concerned that what's implied here is, as much as we say we love our teachers and educators, they're professionals, they know what they're doing, and we trust them, our kids, what we're saying essentially is they're incompetent. We just need to say it if we're going to do it, just say it. I think we're saying they can't do their job. We're sitting up here, in my 11 years sitting on this board, we've never sat here and debated on how to write a policy. You guys did that and we approved. We trust that you guys understand what's the best interest of our kids. When we're talking about blatantly inappropriate books, that implies that you guys sitting there see those books on a day-to-day basis and you ignore them. That's what that implies. Now all of a sudden we're going to put our eyes on them and we're going to make this profound deal, about the books. So I'm opposed to any additional censorship other than what we have, right? And any of this additional distractions relative to school books, because we have enormous amounts of list of items that should take precedent over this. A couple months ago, we weren't even talking about school books. CRT was the big fear-mongering tactic that was being used. I prefer we go back to CRT and leave the school books alone. I honestly do, right? Because at least it's not affecting the kids. And we take one step down this road where we've got school boards sitting up here making dictates, making policies, deciding what books kids get to read. It's a slippery slope. One step is a mile to get back. And I caution us from making that step, that mistake, right? And so what I am not want to do is continue to sit here and listen to political debates go one way or another, where one jabs others and others have political rallies over to the left, and my man here's making his points as well, just so we can get fanfare. Not willing to entertain that. Not at the expense of the school district.
Yeah, I don't appreciate being accused of something that, and I presume you're talking about me since I'm the only one that has been mentioned here. If you're okay with sexually explicit material in front of our children, then that's on you. But for you to say that we are inappropriate or we're political, I don't know if I'm running for office, I'm not sure, but that is completely inaccurate.
Mr. Williams, I can speak a little bit to it. I am okay with us reviewing and strengthening policy. I feel like that's what we're in the process of doing. If moving, I read a lot of emails both ways, and we've been hearing about it not just over this last couple of weeks, but we've been hearing about it for about a year or so. And so I'm okay with us looking at ways that we can strengthen. I don't see any issue with anything other than I just don't feel comfortable writing in a policy that allows a board member to have some type of fast lane that a constituent or a parent doesn't have.
I
So
hear
that's
what you're saying.
the issue that
I'm just saying specifically, and I'll address your question, your concern, Skeeter. I'll ignore the other. I'm just saying anything that we're doing here seemingly to be a power grab, right? It's a power grab that's going to lead to a slippery slope of overburdening our folks out there in the audience, our school administrators and our teachers, etc., when it's unnecessary. That's what I'm saying.
How is sexually explicit
That's what I'm saying.
unnecessary?
You can go make it as egregious as you want. We can try to make this sound like this is a totally egregious act that somebody's trying to perpetrate, or someone doesn't care about kids and all this other fear-mongering tactics that you want to use. Yeah. But the reality of it is school books are not an issue. Everyone here who showed up and had issues with school books allow their kids to have cell phones. They can take these things and go to porn town if they so choose, but yet we're sitting here talking about school books. My kid has never, and I guarantee you, any of these educators sitting out here, no parent has ever came to them and said their kid has been devastated by a book they read. I would be on the other end of the spectrum. I would love my kid to read every book in that library. Education, right? Education with understanding is helpful, right? That's what it's all about. Let the kids read. Guess what? It would prompt discussion. It would prompt understanding. It would prompt a broader view of things. Some of the things they list up here, some folks like those books. They need those books. Those are applicable to their daily lives, right? It may not work for me. It may not be something I would read. It may not be something for my kids to read. But who am I, right, to put that on your household? Yeah. And I just think this is a dangerous slope. So you can say I love porn and I want the kids to see all this and make it as egregious and outrageous as you want it to sound, right? But you're just entertaining self. The reality of it is this is not a pressing issue in our district. If you want to deal with pressing issues, let's deal with homeless kids. Let's deal with special education. Let's deal with overcrowding. Let's deal with drug abuse. Let's deal with teacher retention. Let's deal with police retention. Let's deal with teachers' excessive workloads. Let's deal with academic performance. Let's deal with school board overreach. Let's deal with that. Let's deal with meeting management, school board meeting management. Let's deal with that. All these items, to me, are way more pressing than a book. Leave the books alone. Get back to something else. Go back to the faction that's advocating books all of a sudden across the nation. Go back to them and say, look, let's find something else that's less harmful to the kids. CRT was perfect. Find some scapegoat such as that, some red herring that you guys can use as a rally cry, but don't use school books or any type of literature, educational material as your rally cry.
Trustee Williams, I would encourage you to read your emails of actual photos from books that have been found in our libraries and actual excerpts from books, and tell me again that you don't think we have a problem.
If I may, if we could.
I think we got a problem, but the problem is amongst me, amongst us.
I feel like I'd like to see if there's some other board members that would like to give opinions as well, if anybody.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I do want to say thank you to our district for implementing the library notification emails that have been going out. I think that's been incredibly helpful to parents to see what books their children are checking out. And, we're still working out the bugs on that. But that's a great way to bring parents and kids together and talk about the things that they're bringing home from the library. I do agree with President Hubert in regards to the board action where board members would usurp our committee and our parents and our administrators who read the specific books that are in question, because it is important to get their valuable feedback, their opinions through the TEKS. All of that is very valuable to me as a trustee to understand exactly why the book fits the criteria or why it doesn't. Just helps me make a better decision. And so in that instance, I would hope that any policy that we have, that there isn't a fast track, that we do go through our committee process to make sure that everybody has opportunity to give opinions and thoughts on the specific text. And so, you know, there were some changes, some very minor changes, shall and all the little things. But I think we already have a very strong book policy. But if there are some little things that we want to change, that's fine. But again, just as long as we're not usurping the committee process. So, thank you.
So, do we have, Ms. Olin, would you like to?
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
I fell to forgetting to turn that on. I did want to quick point out that the only part of HB 900 that is in question at the moment is correct as far as the vendor rating. But what is under evaluation there at the Supreme Court based on their ruling is that it's an undue, they're challenging that the vendor has to do the rating. None of the other parts that have to do with the education code 33.021 and all the other pieces are not in question. So
Okay.
your question regarding adding that comment in or that code in is important because that is a new piece to it. Where last year this year, but earlier in February, you and Dr. Knoll both said it would be nice if we had better clarification of what obscene and what explicit sex and so on and so forth. And they did do that, and they did clarify that, and I don't necessarily want to read all that out loud in here. But I do too believe that we need to add that 33.021 in. I do call into question where some changes were made. There were some that were shall or must or whatever, but when we change shall and may, that is a huge difference of meaning and understanding.
Okay.
My last thing and there are a few of those that got done on the very last revision.
Yeah.
So, but the one other thing that I have a concern with that I mentioned in February and I'll bring today, you're saying you don't want us as a board to fast track a book without being able to have it go through a committee. And while I would respect that, I could see where you're saying you don't want us to have privileges that necessarily a parent may not have or whatever. But on the reverse side, one of the concerns I brought to you was, or the board in February, was that unless a book goes to the consideration committee, it is then appealed if they don't like the result, and then it goes to a level 3. We don't, as a board, ever have a say in on that book. And then it's not allowed to be appealed again or reviewed for a year. But if you're talking fast tracking, or if you're asking for the board to do a reconsideration, are you just asking that the board fill out a form and present it to a reconsideration committee or ask for a reconsideration committee, and then their review, and then it comes before the board? So what would that look like, I guess is what I'm asking.
That's a fair question. It's a good question. So I believe that what I'm talking about, I think there are two different things. I thought I read in here, and if I didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I read that if a book goes through, not a board member brought forth book, but if a book is going through the committee and the committee did not vote in favor of the person that appealed the decision, that a board member could still take that book and bring it, even though, they may feel. I like that idea. Sometimes, we might not agree with the committee, and so if a board member sees that, and I think we will, moving forward, get a list of the books that have gone through the committee and the decisions.
You get that presently.
So we get that now. Okay, thank you. So we get that now, the book. So we would be able to bring that, and I would say that book has already been challenged, and so it could certainly come to the committee. I don't see any issues.
To the board?
I'm sorry, yes, thank you. Thank you for the correction. That could come to the board because it's already been through a committee. I don't have any issues with that. I think I was just saying a book, what I could see happening is not necessarily that, we may find a book. You still have children in the district, and so I call them children. I'm sure they don't appreciate that, but you still have children in the district, and so they're going to have books that you're going to be able to see. I won't. So I could see a scenario where a parent comes directly to me with a book. They're going to come directly to me and say, hey, what about this? And then for me to be able to bring that book directly to the board to vote on, I think that circumvents, if that's the right word, the parental involvement in a committee. I'm just saying, I'd like for that scenario, for those scenarios, to go through a committee, and then if the decision that the committee makes is not in favor of what a board member wanted or felt like should have happened, then it should certainly come to the board. That's what I'm asking. So, is that
I don't want to overstep, but can I ask a question or just
Yes.
clarification from just kind of watching, you know, one thing I want to point out is, you know, we are talking about policy, but the statement, if it's not in policy, it doesn't matter. That's not an accurate statement.
Sure.
95% of what we do is about procedure. That's my duty by law to have procedure. So even though we didn't change the policy in February when we talked about it, we've seen numerous procedural changes that have happened. So, you know, on our website now we have where you know, when we're going to order books, they're up there for a 30-day review. That's a procedural change that's happened. We have the list of books that have been removed due to selection criteria. That's out there for the world to see. We have all the reconsideration committee information out there. We have set up our informal reconsideration committee. I want to point out that, not just for the sake of, I know there's been like some ayes and this and that thrown around, not a single board member has removed a book from this school district. Right? That would be outside of policy. That is not the way it works. When a book comes in, I've had, you know, when board members or anybody brings a book to our attention, it goes to our library services team to make a decision. Now, we have had some books that have come in that have been so egregious that it's an immediate decision is made, the book is removed immediately. It is a, you know, at the very highest level in our library services, it's immediately removed because it is so egregious it does not meet criteria. If there's a question about further than that, it's not an immediate move, then it goes on the list of books to go through our informal process if no one has formally challenged it. I forwarded you all this afternoon the latest list of books that went through our informal process, and that's posted on our website as well, so everybody can see it. So those are all procedural changes that we've still done within our current policy. But to the question on this policy, and I just, you know, what we understand is that no policy changes unless 4 people vote for a policy change. We've done this once before. So just in the spirit of trying to help to get to a point where maybe we can vote on something that we can put in place. I'm hearing that there would be support for this document, maybe with just a few small changes, if there was an agreement that board members couldn't bypass the original reconsideration process. If you could submit it to the regular reconsideration process, but board members would have the authority, as Ms. Odenweiler just said, to, if a reconsideration committee does not remove a book, even if the original complainant does not appeal, a board member has the right to make that appeal directly to the board and bring it directly to the board. I think it's what you just mentioned, right, Ms. Odenweiler? You didn't want it to die and you not get a chance to pull it forward.
Right,
So you
that was
would
one of my concerns,
Right.
because sometimes a constituent or
Fair.
a complainant may choose not to appeal for a number of reasons. There's a number of reasons there.
Fair enough. Right.
And yet there's concern, which theoretically, if we implement the the Texas Education Code in, we hopefully don't have that many at
Right.
that point.
Fair
But
enough. True.
it states here, in accordance with board policy local, any board member may request an agenda item in the appeal process. So that's only after it went through reconsideration, which I agreed with everyone
Right.
here. But then there's a second place where board action can take place, and it's on page 8 of 8, where it states, it says at a board meeting, and this is where President Hubert was concerned
Right.
about it not going to a reconsideration committee.
Correct.
So, I have 2 comments on those, but the first one being, so he would like to see, if I'm not misunderstanding President Hubert, you would like to see that in board action on page 8 of 8, that it state that we go, that if a board member has a desire for a book to be reconsidered, that they fill out the form, a reconsideration committee is formed, a group, panel, whatever you want to call it, is formed, and it goes through, and then at that point, it's up to a board member to decide if they want to bring it to the board after it's been through the reconsideration committee?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
At least that way parents and
Yes.
constituents have seen,
I'm
laid
just trying
eyes
to
on
make
it.
sure that we're in agreement there,
Yeah.
so. There,
I don't agree with that policy whatsoever. I mean, it seems I'm telling you, man, you start making this personal about me, it's gonna be a problem. So let me get what I had to say out. I think you going to this committee is a farce. You go into this committee with the expectation they're gonna do your bidding. If they don't do your bidding, you're gonna bring it to the board anyway, right? So why have a school board member send it to a committee, understanding that if the committee don't vote their way, they're gonna bring it to the board anyway? That's a ruse. Why would we do that? You know? And I don't want to be inundated with books that y'all deem are not appropriate. All right? If that staff or that staff member at that level in the library is read that book, looked at that book, then a committee has looked at that book, read that book, and deemed that book appropriate, why are we overstepping once again? You're bringing stuff to the board that shouldn't be coming to the board.
Yeah,
You
first
have
of
a
all, I
process
don't
in place.
appreciate being threatened. Second of all, if the policy works that we put into play, if it works, it won't need to. But I understand, I'm willing to come to a compromise on what you're saying, but I do think that the way this is written, the way the policy reads, it should work.
First of all, I didn't threaten you.
Yes, you did. You said there was going to be a problem.
Well,
What kind of problem were you
Okay,
mentioning?
we
I think
can
you
just
just
move
stopped
on from
talking,
this, if
Back
it's
to
okay.
President Hubert,
Yes,
when we were, I think we were coming to an agreement on, at least amongst us, on
Well, I haven't-
several of us communicating.
If it's
here.
okay, we could hear from Ms.
And that's
Blank if
fine,
you
but I
have
did want to
anything.
point out the one other thing.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I hadn't heard from you.
The one other thing I wanted to point out is in both of those, in both of those little segments, in the last revision that was done,
Our revision?
yes, in the last
August?
one that Ms. Gladys sent out.
Oh, yes, okay.
That it, all of a sudden, there was the change from shall to may, and those do not equate. So.
I don't
under-
have an opinion on those, whatever.
Yeah, so that's
whatever
all I
the
was
board
going to
can-
say is
can come
originally
with.
when we were doing all the back and forths with Mrs. Gladys, it originally stated shall, it went all the way through until this change, and then all of a sudden it says may, and those do not.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's
We
either
could
an
give
up or a
that-
down. I mean, that's really it.
We-
It's an up or a down.
That's part of what we can ask Ms. Gladys to change, to bring to us.
How about this, because my concern, I changed it because it was it implies not compliance with Robert's rules to require a second. So if someone could, I make a motion to remove, ABC book, or that we consider it, and that the board would have to vote without a second. And so how about if I change it to shall consider the item instead of just shall vote, shall consider?
I leave that to Ms. Oldenweiler to answer.
Well, my only concern on that is technically it isn't a Robert's Rules of Order, because what it would do is exactly like what Mr. Williams was trying to do earlier, where he wanted to just not have this discussion. If it gets a second, yes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And the bottom line is it comes up, if it goes to a vote, let's just say, instead of saying shall vote, then it goes whether it's to uphold, so we're voting, are we going to uphold it? Are we going to modify it? Or are we going to reject it? I mean, and then the Robert's Rules of Orders kick in.
I can play with that language.
Yeah, so if I can just circle back one more time here, just for clarification for Mrs. Gladys and myself. What I'm hearing is that we can work to continue further this language, making the adjustment from the immediate board bringing something to a board member bringing it to the board, but make the adjustment that it would go to the reconsideration committee, and at that point, whether it was board member initiated or not, anything that went to a reconsideration committee, a board member could appeal it directly to the board. We can make that change in policy. We can continue to tweak a few of the shalls and mays, and then at that point, we will share it back out with you all for feedback. And if we need to convene something to hammer out, like the final language, then President Hubert would come to you and ask for that. but, and then we could bring forward
Sure.
in
what you
November,
understand, too?
what, these revisions, Mrs. Gladys? Is that-
Right, and I'll make it to both EFA and EFB, similar, you know, I'll tweak those.
We're
So what
not not voting tonight. I just
Right,
need I
yeah,
just
we
need to
gotta
know,
give
like,
some
is everybody
direction.
okay with that? Because I just don't want to ask Ms. Gladys to do
Well,
a
on
lot
board
and do it.
action, I mean, I'm just trying to clarify,
Yeah.
or on board action, or also adding the Texas Education Code 33.021, 30.21, where it goes. It's in there. It's in
Yeah,
there.
I-
I'm
It's
just
already in
asking,
there.
are we good
Yeah,
with
it's
that?
yeah.
Okay.
I would
oh,
say
it
we
needs
would
to be
start.
referenced.
100%.
My
What?
under
I'm done.
yeah, my
Okay.
preference or understanding was we were starting with this green document, which that's in there.
Okay.
So we would just be
Wait,
making
that
those-
green document is Conroe's current policy?
No, this is the Conroe version of the Katie policy. Like, so with our
Thank you.
language,
Okay.
our elementary designation,
Right.
grade levels.
Just making
Is
sure,
this
thank you.
EFB the same one you sent out yesterday afternoon?
It is, but with all the other changes in it. The ones, it's really combines them both. So I sent on maybe Thursday last week a seriously
Right.
edited document, and then I made a few more changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it should have
So-
those combined.
Okay, but not the ones that I sent last night, right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So
That's-
President Hubert, if it's okay with you, we would like to move forward. We'll draw this up. If we get into a point where it's too much back and forth, we just, we may ask you to
That's
to
fine.
help us to sit down, maybe a couple board members to sit down with Ms. Gladys so that we don't go back and forth 50 times. We can just get it settled in. But
Yeah, that's-
we'll try to get it as
fine.
it pleases you guys. We'll bring it back next month. And
Yeah, Dr. Knoll, I just have one
yes.
more
Okay,
thing, not
please.
about that, because, not about policy, but you talk
Okay.
about policy and procedure.
Yes.
So we have these policies that we've discussed. Procedurally wise, would we need to discuss the procedure of, is it, you have to give the board members 30 days to read the book? Is that to be required? Is that the procedural side that we could talk another time, or does that need to go into policy? Is that a fair question?
Well, it is a fair question. That is one of my issues with this overall, but I did not address any of those issues. This policy contains things that would typically be included in an administrative procedure and are in our administrative procedures, but I did not adjust those because they were substantive.
Well, then I would suggest, if it's okay, I think you've heard where we want to go. Let's see what we come up with next month, and then if we need to go from there, is that acceptable?
I will send a
by the
red line
majority?
version of what you have in the green policies, okay? So that's where we'll start with.
Okay.
They'll look like this, and then I'll red line them for you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Good
you so much.
discussion. Okay. Okay, moving back up to item 5E, receive information regarding district-wide intruder detection audits.
All right, Mr. McCord.
So President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. So as of tonight, 20 of our campuses have received their official intruder detection audits from the state. So 10 were audited in September and 10 were audited in October. I'm pleased to tell you at this point, none of the 20 had a finding that is the desired result, to have no findings. Please note that a change has been enacted from the state for this current school year when it comes to our outside intruder detection audits. That change is that all campuses will be audited across the state and not just 75% as it was last year. While I'm here, I do want to, out of an appreciation of time, I do want to note at this first meeting, really the significant efforts of our students and staff at each campus for what they're doing to make this work. It is no small feat what the state is asking. It's important, and so I want to thank them. Also want to thank our maintenance and technology staffs for doing what they're doing diligently to make sure that doors are always working and securable. That is something that they've made a priority. And then lastly, I want to thank our security team of Ethan Barton, Michael Ferguson, and James Thompson. We performed our own internal intruder detection audits in August and early September before any of the state audits started. And that is what I have for you tonight. I'm pleased to be here, and if you have any questions.
All right, any questions?
I would just also add, certainly we want to have no findings, and just the math is the math. At some point we might, but I want to note that we got a phone call this week from our auditor who beyond just giving a grade on the audit, wanted to go out of his way to call us to tell us what a great job our campuses do with this and how impressed he has been at all 20 of the campuses that he has gone to. So beyond, and occasionally there will be a minor misstep that could cause a finding, but just the overall, his opinion of what he has seen in our campuses has been great. So that's a testament to Mr. McCord, the whole team, but really campus, we have some principals out here that it's their work, what they do is great. So
Very good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCord.
Thanks.
Okay, item F is a board member request update regarding district counseling and mental health services available to students and their families. That, once again, is, for me, I know that Dr. Taylor and
So-
Dr. Knoll have been working on some stuff.
Yeah,
for
so
us.
we, certainly we know we have challenges with mental health. It's not a Conroe ISD thing. It's not a kid thing.
Right.
It's a adults and society and all the things. And we were having a conversation with President Hubert about this, and he just felt like it would be beneficial for the whole board and the whole community to hear of all the different things that we do have available, because people may not be aware, and Dr. Taylor and her team do such an outstanding job. So we just want to give you a quick update on this.
Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. This is certainly not the entire list of services we provide tonight, but I will give you a brief overview of our mental health services in our district. Before I get started, I wanted to first thank the board for your support in allowing us to have these positions in our district. As you see on the screen, we're thankful to have campus staff, and we're also thankful to have district staff that work with our students in the guidance and counseling department. And tonight, some of those staff members are here. I wanted to recognize them, and I want to openly thank them and all of our school counselors for the hard work that they do each day. They do hard work on hard things, and so I just wanted to make that publicly known. Thank you so much for everything that you do. So I'll start out talking about some of the direct services.
Can we go back? Can we introduce? I see them here.
sorry.
Let's introduce them.
So sorry.
Let's introduce them.
If you're awake, please stand. Tiffany Rodriguez, Marianne Turabiates, Lindsay Taylor, Janice Lovelace, and Manuel Texador. Some of the direct services that we provide in our district are the services that we get parent permission for. And as you see on the screen, we have Tri-County Behavioral Health Care. And through Tri-County, we have 4 campuses that have Tri-County housed on their campuses. And we have additional campuses that receive services through Tri-County, where they provide things such as case management, counseling, and skills training. Yes to Youth, formerly known as Montgomery County Youth Services, provides group counseling for our students. And you may have previously heard that there was a waiting list for Yes to Youth. We found out last week that waiting list has been cut from 4 to 6 weeks to 2 to 4 weeks. So we are able to send more students their way. We have T-Chat, which is our telemental health support for our students, and they can access this support from home or on campus. We have the Lone Star Family Health Clinic that provides medical and mental health support to our students. And then Mosaics of Mercy that provides referrals to our campuses, referrals for substance abuse and mental health. And we were recently presented with a proposal from Mosaics of Mercy called the Kaleidoscope Proposal. Under this proposal, kids were to receive services on our campuses after school, and we do have supports in place during the day. So what we were allowed to do, or able to do in that regard, was to connect Mosaics of Mercy with the Lone Star Family Health Clinic in East County so that they could use that clinic one day a week to provide after-school services for our students. And so we continue to look at ways to provide more responsive services to our students and families. What's next is our effort to look at providing LPCs to our students that are employed by the district. That is a future goal of ours. We have been exploring this with other districts in Texas. We will be visiting some of those districts to see how those pieces work on those campuses. Additionally, this Friday, we will participate and the Childhood Trauma Impact Conference in our county to learn more about childhood trauma in our county, our state, and our nation. And so we continue to look at ways to increase mental health support for our families. And so that is really all I have for you tonight. This is a never-ending journey, and we will not end this journey to continue to support our families as far as mental health goes. Okay.
Very good. Any questions or thoughts?
No, but could we get that slide? Would you send that to us?
Which one? This one?
That one.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all looking into that Kaleidoscope program. That the Mosaics of Mercy is really diligent in just helping students out. Something that's unique about them is they provide the clinical side of mental health, which, you know, we have resilience training and we have resources, but the clinical side of mental health, which is something that, you know, I know is controversial for school districts to say, are we going to get into that or not? But this is a great opportunity for us to be able to provide an avenue for those students that need the clinical help as well. So thank you for working on that. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to see where this is going.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there you go. Okay, moving on to item 6A, receive information regarding the instructional materials selection process.
All right, round 2 for Dr. Upshaw, once again kicking off a process tonight that will be ongoing.
Good evening again. President Hubert's, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. I'm here to just, like Dr. Knoll mentioned, kicked off the material selection process for Proclamation 2024. Apologize. So Proclamation 2024 calls for us to review the materials for the following areas: science K through 12, technology applications K through 2, a personal
8.
financial literacy and
K through
economics
8.
course.
K through 8.
Thank you. I said K through 2. Yeah, we need more children to know about technology applications. I apologize.
That's okay.
Focus. Okay. A social studies course and a variety of career and technical education courses. So there's a long list of career and technical education courses. This is 17 of those courses. And through this process, we work all year long, and then the goal is to implement the material once, if approved by you, next fall. When we come forward to you with a recommendation, where we purchase this material is through the instructional materials and technology allotment. We have plenty of acronyms in the education field. We're going to add one more. This one's called IMTA. So I thought it'd be easier, instead of slide with information, just to walk you through a timeline. Maybe? There it is. So this is the timeline right now until December. So basically, we've already started with getting organized. Currently, right now, the community and the public and stakeholders can give feedback on this timeline, and that is open through that TA public comment form for parents, constituents, and community. So we've gone ahead and added a QR code to make that live, so when this goes on our presentation for our school board information, people and our community can access it that are tuning in tonight. That closes on October 30th. So the goal is the community gives feedback, and then off that feedback, then the State Board of Education gives the feedback, they propose the final list. We only bring forth to our teacher committee what has been approved on the State Board of Education as the final list. When that happens and we then move forward, we then provide, again, in Conroe ISD, to our community, to our parents, and our school district employees, opportunity to give feedback, and that is through December and through January. And through your guidance, these are the multiple ways that we will give feedback to our community to be able to provide us what their thoughts are on this curriculum. Then our last day for community review will be January 12th. Teachers come together, look at that feedback, they review the evaluation form and parent feedback, community feedback. We then talk to us about what it's going to cost and what we need for all the books and the things for the children. And then we ultimately, if the process goes well, we come to you on March 19th to give you what our thoughts are for you to consider. If the adoption is considered successful and you vote it forward, we start ordering. It comes in pallets and 18-wheelers and trucks, and then we deliver to the building and we train, and the magic happens. So that's simply just an information item for you to have that information about the process. Are there any questions for me?
Okay. None?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you share that with us also, please? Thank you.
Okay, item 7A, receive capital improvements update. I believe this is Mr.
Mr. Foster.
Easy Foster. Back
Good
Sunday
evening,
morning.
President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It's my pleasure to bring you an update on our capital improvements we have underway throughout the district, starting with our safety and security program. All right. So our safety and security program, this is the final safety and security program from the 2019 bond. Following all the projects we've currently got in place, and these projects will have visited every campus in the district. Largely things you can't see: fire alarm upgrades, the BDA systems for our first responders, our campus radio upgrades, our cameras, our access control systems. For the most part, the big equipment has already been installed up to this point. We're wrapping up some of those big details, getting some of the long lead stuff delivered. That'll be installed by the end of this calendar year. Then we'll be working through the tweaks and programming, making sure it all works over the next calendar year. The whole project is on scheduled to be completed by the end of the calendar year 2024. Now, our new campuses, this is Bartlett Elementary School, scheduled to open in August of 24. It is on schedule. You can see from the picture we're moving forward with the roof and the building exterior. So the big milestone we're marching towards is dry-in, where we're working on the inside of the building rather than the outside of the building. So that process is moving along very nicely, very well. We should have everything in place right around the end of January to begin really putting in the finishes and making that personality of that campus come to life. And it is, like I said, on schedule. We'll welcome students in August of 2024. Now at Conroe High School, that major renovation, it's the long one. We're moving to the next phase, which is fine arts. You can see from our picture there, the building slab for that new building extension is progressing very well. We expect the structural steel for that structure to be delivered this month and then start going vertical. So the next pictures you see will have more detail to look at for that new fine arts wing as we make the corner to the new dining commons as well. Interior of that building, we continue to work with our departments to make every lab and every space that we've opened for school this year more functional as we tie all those buildings together and make those things work. Overall, the project is moving along and making progress, but we will be on that campus through December of 2025. At Oak Ridge High School, the overhaul there with our new CT wing, they're using the building, the classes are operating, contractors working through the punch list and finishing up details inside. The work outside is what, like we see on the screen here. We have traded some legal documents with Entergy over this past week. So that is the kind of the hurdle we've been waiting for to get the power poles that are in that roadway relocated so we can finish that roadway. And we look forward to being just waiting on their crews now, and then we'll open that roadway as soon as possible and wrap that project up.
I'm sorry, excuse me. So
No
on that response from Entergy, do we have a timeline?
So what we traded this week was the actual easement document that allows them to put the power poles on the edge of the road rather than the middle of the road. They've gotten that from us. We have not yet gotten their crew response yet from them. We're still in hurricane season, so they're not ready to schedule immediately, so they're waiting for a window of availability. But we still do anticipate it being within the next 3-4 weeks.
Right.
So it should not be long at this point.
Great, okay.
Indeed. I did ask the CEO for his cell phone number, so.
Maybe that's why I left.
It may be. Now, our East County Transportation Center, that project is moving along nicely as well. You can see this is one of the new work bays in the parts office that is for that. So the inside of that building is moving along. The outside is also progressing well. We will be wrapping it up for our use in the spring semester, so we'll be moving into it over the winter break. Likewise, in North County, that project overall is on schedule. You're looking at a picture of the interior finishes for the restroom changing areas for our bus drivers, mechanics, and the folks that work in that admin facility there. So the admin building is scheduled to be moved into over the winter break as well. And then we're working on the extension of the mechanic shops where the admin used to be in the main building. That project is that building extension is closing up, and it should be mostly usable by the end of the calendar year, but a little bit into January they'll be moving buses into them and working on them. But overall, that project is moving on nicely, and that's our update.
Very good.
Hey, Mr. Foster, I want to take a minute and thank you for the response regarding the Conroe, the high-level railing that I emailed you about. Mr. McCord reached out to me and said y'all were looking into a potential fixed to heighten those rails?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard, I mean, we meet all the minimum requirements, but in this instance, minimum may not be the right place to be. So we are working on something to make that a little bit more, at least appear more substantial. I mean, it is perfectly adequate and safe and does what it needs to do, but we want to perceive that it's safe too. So the perception is what we're trying to solve now, so.
Very much appreciated. Also, the piston for the elevator at Moorhead.
It's there, it's installed, so the elevator is in progress currently. So it met with some difficulty going in, but they were able to overcome those difficulties, and that process is in progress. So we're kind of at the mercy of the state with that too, because once we get it installed, we have to wait on them to inspect and release it for the public. But it is coming along.
Good to
finally.
know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Okay, we will recess to go into a public hearing. We're not going anywhere, but we're recessing. The time is 9:39. I'll turn this part of the meeting over to Dr. Knoll.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, we are going to hold our public hearing on the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, or FIRST. Mr. Rick Reeves is going to make our public presentation here.
This is weird, being on this
Yeah.
side, going this way.
Mr. Reeves was excited this morning as we went through this. He finally gets a chance to operate the clicker. Normally, he doesn't get a chance to do that, so he's...
Let's hope I don't mess this
It's
up
super
now.
tricky,
All
though.
right, I know.
Sarah and I have been
I know.
talking the whole meeting talking about how that clicker is so sensitive.
Trigger,
Yeah.
very trigger happy.
So good luck with it,
yeah,
sir.
Thanks. Well, good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, Dr. Knoll, and community members. It is my pleasure to present to you this evening the School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas Annual Financial Management Report. See, there it goes.
Right
Just
off
like
the
that.
bat.
The state's financial accountability rating system, known as the School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, or the FIRST report, ensures that Texas public schools are held accountable for the quality of their financial management practices. Rating is based upon an analysis of staff and student data reported for the 21-22 school year, budgetary and actual financial data for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2022. This system is designed to encourage Texas public schools to better manage their financial resources to provide the maximum allocation possible for direct instructional purposes. All right. Each district is assigned one of 4 ratings. The highest rating is a superior achievement, which is between 90 and 100 points, while the lowest is considered substandard between 0 and 69. This is a summary of how the ratings are scored. There are 20 separate performance indicators totaling a possible 100 points. The first 5 are considered critical indicators, and if a district fails any one of these indicators, they are automatically assigned an F or substandard rating. There are also 4 ceiling indicators, and if a district fails any one of these, they will automatically be assigned a B or lower rating, regardless of how many points they accumulate of those remaining indicators. We are pleased to announce this evening that Conroe ISD has received an A, or superior achievement rating, scoring a 98 of a possible 100 points. We are required to share the results of the report to our community, so I'll go over those with you guys now. First, we'll touch on the critical indicators. The scoring on indicators 1 and 2 are regarding the annual financial report, or the AFR, that is submitted to the Texas Education Agency annually. Number 1 asked, was a report submitted by the required deadline, and number 2 asked, was there an unmodified opinion on the financial statements as a whole? The district received a passing score on both of these indicators. Indicators 3 and 4 are measuring compliance with all payment terms. Number 3 is looking for timely payments of all debt agreements, and number 4 is for timely payments to Teacher Retirement System, Texas Workforce Commission, the Internal Revenue Service, and other governmental agencies. All payments were processed on time, and the district received a passing score on both of these indicators. Indicator number 5 was not scored statewide as a result of the requirements surrounding the pension and OPEB liabilities on the statement of net position. Next, we're going to look at our solvency indicators. Indicator number 6 says, was the average change in fund balance assigned and unassigned over the last 3 years less than 25% decrease, or did the current year fund balance exceed 75 days of operational expenditures? CISD's answer was yes. We had an average change in fund balance was an increase of about 9%, and our fund balance is equal to 101 days of operating expenditures. Indicator 7 was a number of days of cash on hand and current investments in the general fund for the school district sufficient to cover operating expenses. Yes, the district did have sufficient cash and investments on hand and received a 10 of 10 on the possible points there. Indicator number 8 was a measure of current assets to current liabilities ratio for the school district sufficient to cover short-term debt. The answer was yes. We received 10 out of 10. Indicator 9, did the school district's general fund revenues equal or exceed expenditures? Once again, our answer was yes, and received the maximum number of points there. Indicator number 10 was not scored statewide due to the pandemic. Indicator 11 was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the school district sufficient to support long-term solvency. If the district's increase of students and membership over the last 5 years was 7% or more, the district automatically passes. We exceeded that with our 10% over the last 3 years. So we received the maximum points there. Number 12 was a correlation between future debt requirements and the district's assessed property value. We actually received 8 out of 10 possible points in this category. We anticipated a possible reduction in points on this indicator as the board chose to sell our bonds 8 months early to take advantage of interest rates in a volatile market. So priority was taken to be physically responsible to our constituents by saving $8.8 million in interest versus maximizing this indicator. So I think we'll take that over the 2 points.
Good trade. It's a good trade.
And just as another side note, if the 2023 bond is successful, we anticipate that we'll achieve the maximum allotted 10 points in this indicator going forward. So, indicator number 13 was the school district's administrative cost ratio equal or less than the threshold ratio. We did receive 10 out of 10. The state's acceptable ratio is greater than or equal to 8.55%. We're at 3.99%. Indicator number 14 also was not scored due to the statewide to the pandemic. Next, we'll look at our financial competence indicators. Indicator number 15, another one not scored as a result of the pandemic. Indicator 16, did the comparison of PEIMS data to like information in the school district's AFR result in a total variance of less than 3% of all expenditures? Yes, we were at 0.18%. Whoops. Number 17, indicator 17 and 18 are measuring internal controls over financial reporting and compliance for local, state, and federal funds as determined by the external independent auditor. The district did receive a clean audit and therefore passed both of these indicators. Indicator 19, did the school district post the required financial information on its website according to the government code, local government code, education code, Texas administrative code, and other statutes? Yes, we received our 5 out of possible 5. And finally, indicator number 20, did the school district's administration and school board members discuss any changes or impact to local, state, federal funding at a budget meeting within 120 days before the district adopted its budget? And the answer was yes. So as always, we'd like to compare ourselves to our peer districts, as you can see here. Just want to note that out of the 6 listed here, 4 actually did receive on the indicator number 12, they did miss 2 points as well. So we were not the only ones that missed it in that one. The first report, along with the additional required disclosures, including superintendent's contract, the annual financial management report, can be located on our district's transparency website at the link listed there. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Reeves. At this time, we would open it up for public comment regarding the first report. If anyone would like to come forward and make a comment, you can come forward to the podium at this time.
Just wake up your neighbor and ask them if they want to come
All right, so seeing no movement, that will conclude our first report. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
good.
And can we also get a copy of that, please? Thank you.
And just as a reminder, just for everybody to know, anything we present is on our website, it's on the board's website. Everything you see here, you can. We're happy to send it to y'all directly, but just so that everybody knows, you can all have a copy. Of anything we present. It's all there as well.
You get a copy. Okay. Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We are back in session. The time is 9:48. There is a break coming, but before we get there, I'd like to have Ms. Garza come up. Oh, she's already there. Ms. Garza come up.
She's ready to roll.
9A, receive financial report.
I know everyone's ready to go home, so we'll make this quick. Good evening, President Hubert, members of the board, and Dr. Knoll. It's my pleasure to share the financial update for the month of September. This is our first month of the fiscal year. Our balance sheet this evening shows our district's assets, liabilities, and fund balance for the funds presented here. On the income statement shows the district's revenues and expenditures. Our revenues come from local sources, state sources, and federal revenues. In talking with the tax office, tax statements should be going out this week. The historic tax relief that we've been sharing with our community that came out of Senate Bill 2 in the second legislative session will become real to our taxpayers as they open their statements here in the next week. So we should start seeing tax collections come in. Probably the months of November, December, we'll see a big influx, and then January is where the majority of it comes in. Our 2019 bond referendum update, estimated to complete, is just over $46.3 million. Our self-funded insurance, we are 1 month into the plan year. We did have a good month. Our total revenues were $4.4 million, total expenses of $3.4, so a surplus of just over $1 million for the month of September, so we are off to a good start. And our investments as of September 30th, par value is at $434.2 million. The pools are yielding 5.55%. Our portfolio with TCG is at 2.11. And then our combined portfolio is at 5.17, and then our benchmark is at 5.30.
All right, any questions from Ms. Garza? Okay, hearing none, thank you so much. Noted she had 0 problems with the clicker. Okay, item 10A, which is Board of Trustees continuing education announcement. The State Board of Education requires school board members to complete continuing education every year. The state considers this training a board member's duty to his or her community. The state also requires that the board announce whether each member has completed or exceeded the required training, or if a member has failed to complete the number of required training hours and is therefore deficient. Let the minutes of the meeting reflect that for the time period of November 1st, 2022 to October 17, 2023, all members of the Conroe Independent School Board District Board of Trustees have exceeded the required hours of continuing education training. Thank you to everybody for getting that done. All right, and now we've already done item B. We will move to item C, but prior to that, we'll give the opportunity for the community to set up, and we will take a 5-minute recess and be back 5 till.
And all staff members that are not a part of the level 3 hearing are directed to go home. We are back in session now. The time is 10:01. This meeting of the Conroe ISD Board of Trustees is convened on October 17th, 2023. A quorum of the board is present, including the following members: Mrs. Dungan, Mrs. Wagaman, Mr. Hubert, Mrs. Nelson, Mr. Williams, and Mrs. Odenwiller. The board will hear the complaint appeal of parent, Mr. D.R., in accordance with local board policy F&G. The hearing is being recorded. The complaint is against 2 Transportation Department employees. Because the complaint is against district employees and because personally identifiable information about a public school student could be revealed, the hearing will be held in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 and 551.0821. The board will also go into executive session under Texas Government Code Section 551.071 for consultation with the board's attorney. The meeting is now adjourned to executive session under Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.0821. Everyone not associated with this hearing should leave the room. The board will take no action while in executive session. The time is now 10:02. The board is reconvened in open session. The time is now 10:35. The board can uphold the decisions of the level 1 and level 2 hearing officers, overturn or modify the hearing officers' decisions, or grant any relief that they feel is appropriate. Is there a motion?
Motion to uphold the current, what were we saying?
Uphold the level 1 and level 2 decision.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-1. Mr. Remigio, the district will send you a written notice confirming the action taken by the board, sir. This concludes our hearing, and the time is 10:35.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Are we back in?
Yes, sir, it's back to you.
Back
Yes,
to
sir.
me. All right, we are, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Yes.
it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Tiffany voting to fire our people?
Yeah. Okay. All right, we are back in session. The time is 10:36. We do not have any executive session items today, so the next item is to take requests from trustee regarding future board agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to entertain or idea? I know I got your email earlier, so we'll certainly have that on November's.
I'll probably postpone it to December. I want to make sure we get through one before we do the other. So
Okay, okay, we can discuss that. If that's something you want to do, we can push that if need to. Anything else?
Agenda item, you want to tell us what it is, or you just going?
No, I'm withdrawing it at this time.
Oh, okay. Very good. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.